Blair, whatever are you screaming about?
I get to do a freeform this Sunday night from 8 to 10 p.m. I'm so excited.
What are you doing this so-called freeform on?
Initially speaking.
Like who said what first?
No. Like initials. You know, I'm BLC and you're KAC.
Oh, okay. But do you have enough bands?
Yeah, ABC, REM, XTC, NRBQ, OMD, LMNOP.
Oh, yeah, like Run DMC, UB40.
Okay, I can't hear you. Hold on a second. Oh, there's somebody. Hold on. Jeff, I can't hear you. Still can't hear Jeff. Speakers, microphone. So Jeff, go down to the bottom at the taskbar and where you see the little microphone icon, click the down arrow, and you'll get a whole choice. And you may have selected the wrong microphone.
Hey, everybody, can you hear?
I can hear Kim. I still can't hear Jeff. Alex, can you hear Jeff? That's a no from Alex.
No, I can't hear him.
You're muted, Jeff. Somehow. How could Jeff Walker be muzzled?
Good thing we logged in early. Hey, Jeff, why don't you log out and log back in? Try that. When all else fails, reboot. How you been, Kim?
I'm good, honey. How about you? Have you been?
Been really good.
Good.
I got a screen down here and I got a screen up here. So when I'm down,
I got them everywhere, man. If you could see, I got my dual set up here.
Look at
and then
that.
I've got my baby screen over here, just in case.
But more importantly, Kim, do you have your cocktail?
You know what? I'm about to go run and grab it.
You should grab a cocktail.
I'm going to be right back.
Hey, Mark.
Mark DeSanders.
How's it going?
Good, man. Good to see you.
Good to see you guys.
We're still trying to get Walker's dulcet tones to.
There you go. Looks like he's got it enabled.
Yeah, the problem, I got you now. The problem was that I was on a different computer last night. I was on a Dell, and it popped up yesterday and said that I had a BitLocker problem, and I've spent 12 hours now trying to get around the damn BitLocker thing, and I can't.
A BitLocker? What are you torrenting, Jeff Walker? What's happening?
He's keeping with the 80s theme is what it is.
Now he's pirating music.
I've got all my money in GameStop.
Hey, my boy did that. He's in the Army and he came out aces.
Nice.
Oh, wow. Good for him.
Speaking of pirating music, I've been looking around the station at all the metal CDs, and I found so many gems. So the reason I'm at the station right now, on top of like doing my show tomorrow, is just ripping CDs onto my computer.
And these are CDs that aren't in print. You can't go find them on Spotify.
Well, see, some of them are, but you know, CDs are more of like an uncompressed quality, whereas Spotify is like 328 kilobit MP3s.
My friend, rip them. Do it right.
Yeah, but I've heard there's a streaming service called Tidal that does uncompressed like WAVs and FLACs.
Wow.
Yeah, Neil Young was trying to do that stuff with that Pono player. I think he was doing it was uncompressed stuff, but it never took off.
Mm.
Well, I heard him do interviews with people, and he wasn't explaining it right. I hate to knock it, but he needed to explain that it isn't something that you can hear; it's something you feel, and he wasn't using that language.
Oh,
This is the problem with the whole camera thing. It's like having a mirror. You're Darwin. Oh my God, how are you, gorgeous?
Kim, don't worry about it. Jesus, you haven't aged a day.
Oh goodness, you're a charmer.
Oh, I was muted. Hey, how are you?
I'm fine. Oh God, it's so good to see you. How are things?
Good. I'm still on the border, doing my thing. So
I keep watching you.
I know I need to get down there. I'll be in Savannah area in May. I'll have to come and see you.
Please do. If you need a place to crash, just let me know.
Thank you.
You are so welcome. See who else is on this call. Joel Nashdew. Dude, how are you? You're muted.
Wish I had
catchphrase of 2021. You're
Yes, I
muted.
know. You're muted, really. I know.
Oh.
And Laura Hines over there too. Wow.
All
Andres,
right.
hello. Let's see. James
I get-
Turbot, hey.
Better lighting and crappy background.
I was going to look for a studio background, like I was trying to find a picture of the original Album 88 studio, and I was going to make it my background, but I couldn't do it.
If you go look in some of my stuff, George Watts had given me where he did this thing where he did remember when it was right after I think it was the 25th reunion that we all got together and I started doing that website in the early mid 90s, I guess. Oh, good gracious. I have
Look
the
at that.
greatest husband.
Service.
All right.
Also an Album 88 DJ back there, but he's looking at
Good old John. How's he doing?
He's doing great.
Good.
We're
Good.
But train of thought totally derailed. Where were we?
You were talking about some website and backgrounds and
Yeah, but
pictures.
yes.
And
Yeah, George Watts had taken pictures where he came in the door and he had a picture of the lobby with the typewriter and all that stuff. So you might be able to find some in that. I loaded all that stuff up to my Google Drive, and I put a link out there if anybody wants to get to it. Doug Jackson, Steve Mann. Oh my God, look at all these people.
I did, Kim, I did steal some of your audio, and
Awesome.
I do have a little audio montage to play if
Cool.
we want to play some stuff as people join in.
Sure.
Sort of wait for the conversation. Let me get the right screen up here. So let's see. I think my audio is shared. Pretty sure. So I'll start with if I can find it. Here we go.
Hi, everyone.
How you doing?
Hey, Laura.
Great. How are y'all? Happy Valentine's Day.
Oh, that's right.
oh, that's
Yeah, thanks for putting this together.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Oh, we can do that.
Oh,
Mine never looks. It looks kind of like a creepy crab. In church. All that stuff, yeah. Oh goodness, play it, Todd.
All righty. I'll start with one of yours. Can y'all hear the audio? No.
No.
All right. Can't hear the audio, so let me share the player. Hold on.
Oh, how are you?
Hello. Hang on, I'm changing my name back.
Oh,
You don't have to do that, Bo.
yeah.
Not for us.
No, you don't.
There
I
we go.
remember hitting you in the face with a pie, Bo.
Oh gosh, yeah. So we don't need to bring that up again.
All right. Here's some Kim Sadlove.
So I was
talking to my mom, and I said, Mom, what do you want for Christmas? And she said, oh, get me something practical, like a blender or something. And I said, no, Mom, that's not cool. Think of something else, something hip and happening. And she said, well, how about a Smith special? So I said, okay, and I called Val Pittman, and she and I got together. And on Christmas at 6 o'clock, you'll be getting it too, a Smith special on album 88.
Yay!
Hey, the Smiths. Oh.
Yeah, well, you can't beat that. Nobody wanted to
Marcy.
be on Christmas that day, so Val and I took the hit and did our thing.
I used to like working on holidays. I liked working on like New Year's Eve, and I really did a lot.
Well, the calls are so great. The audience
It was awesome.
to it. Yeah, it was great to be on.
Before we do anything official, I had one request. I want, if you can either do it on this, you're recording this, right, Todd?
Am I? Yes, I am. Yes.
So if your audio is good, you can give it the shout. What I want is shout outs to be able to put on the air. And so, you know, your name, what your position or time was, whatever you want to say, and then just a happy birthday, happy 50th or something. But I'd really like to have it in decent quality. So if you have a way to record it, or even put it on your iPhone or something like that and send it to me. Sure. And if that doesn't work, then we can just put it on this thing and we'll just excerpt the audio. And then the second thing is I want to make sure that Andreas gets recognized, because he's the guy that's really made any of this happen. If it hadn't been for Andreas, and I don't know if the station would be observing anything, we would have gotten 5 minutes. So take a bow, Andreas.
Yay!
Hey, Andreas.
I do have hair. I do have hair under this hat. So yeah, it's been a pleasure speaking to all the alums, and especially the 1970s alums. So I am, you know, I'm getting into the 80s now, which I'm very excited about, because that was my generation as well. I worked at WTOL in New Orleans. I've spoken to a lot of you here on this call. So yeah, I'm very excited about the 80s. The 70s, you know, very personal for me to get that history and to get it, you know, get as much as I can. Of course, you know, you talk to one person, they mention somebody else, the can of worms has been opened. But for me, it's fascinating speaking to everybody, because, you know, I spent 30 plus years in professional journalism in TV news. So I kind of know, you know, just the strong bonds that people make in these type of environments, radio stations, TV stations. So I get that part. And I love the music of the 70s and 80s and 90s as well. So I wanted to thank all the alums. Jeff and I did a show this past Wednesday. There's going to be some special programming. I know Bryce was kind of communicating that, the student media director at GSU, on February 18th. So what we kind of decided to do is kind of every month celebrate a different decade. So you had the original, you know, January 18th that celebrated the 70s with the first air check and the first hour of RAS programming, and then some other talk stuff with some of the alums. We're going to do the same thing on Thursday, February 18th. So Bryce is putting together kind of a 1 hour, kind of the big hits of the 80s, like the top albums of the 80s. Then Jeff and I show a replay where we kind of go through the big moments of WRAS history in the 80s. And then there'll be some other talk stuff. So it should be a pretty cool 5 hour programming block. I did want to introduce Alex Whitland. You see him, he's the only one on screen wearing a mask. He is currently at the station. So Alex hosts our Metal Militia program, which runs every Monday from 7 to 9 p.m. So Alex is a current GSU student like myself, and a current WRAS DJ. So everybody welcome Alex. He's a young guy. So, you know, we need to keep this legacy alive with the youngins too. So Alex, welcome to this call. You know, it's just been fascinating talking to people. You know, what Jeff was asking for, these drops, I've already requested a lot of these from people. So, you know, if you're sending them, you know, I don't want, you know, Jeff, we need to coordinate this a little bit better.
Oh, no,
I'm getting stuff and you're getting.
Yeah, we need to send them all to you then.
Well, whatever, but you know, yeah, we can get them in the system. So it's very important to get your voice back on the air. I mean, and like Jeff was saying, you know, hi, I'm Kim Sadie. I did this and that, and then, you know, I loved it, you know, happy 50th. So, you know, I've gotten some artists to do these things too, because, you know, the station, I'm not hogging this thing here, but I just thank you, Jeff, for giving me an introduction. I haven't spoken to some of you guys, but, you know, I'm not just getting the alums, I'm getting artists. I spoke to Mike Mills of REM. I spoke to Mitch Easter. I spoke to Rick Richards with the Georgia Satellites. He had a great story. I spoke to Steve Albini of Big Black.
Wow.
I mean, one of my favorite bands. Radical band, radical. He wasn't real familiar with the Atlanta scene, but I mean, he spoke college music, college radio in general. I mean, everybody I hit up from these artists that are accessible are just, it was a fascinating moment, especially the 80s, and not to shrug off the 70s or the 90s, but the 80s, I mean, college rock was just, massive. And without radio, a lot of these artists, as we know, would not be, iconic. I mean, if you look at U2 and B-52s and REM, I mean, what you guys did in the 80s, I mean, was making this music, I mean, cultural production in Atlanta. It's fascinating to me. And then gender issues and race issues. That's a typical historian mumbo jumbo there, academic mumbo jumbo, but I am an academic, so to speak. So yeah, it's just been great. Talking to everybody, talking to the artists. I talked to Elizabeth Grace Hale, who wrote a book called Cool Town, which came out recently. It puts the Athens scene in a different perspective. And it's really cool because that Party Out of Bounds book, which came out, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago, great book. This is more about the party scene. Her book is really about the music, really with the B-52s, Pylon, leading into REM, Love Tractor, blah, blah, blah. I mean, she's from Atlanta. And, she mentioned to me, and I didn't know this because I'm not from here, that there was always a big rivalry between Athens and Atlanta, and I said, one of our shows is the Georgia Music Show. And she kind of laughed and said, oh, they have the Athens Music Show on WUOG. I'm like, okay, well, that's kind of snobby. But, so, getting academics as well, and then experts. I want to talk to a programming person from 99X, about that whole thing in the early 90s. So I'm doing kind of an encompassing thing. I hope to produce I will be producing a 4 to 5 hour audio documentary. As I tell everybody when we do these things, the Georgia State University Library Special Collections is interested in these recordings because there is and this is another plea I have to all the alums, there is a WRAS radio archives at the Georgia State Library. And we, as a university, and you as people that worked at RAS, we're very fortunate to have material that was preserved by many people that were GMs and stuff. Like Jeff was one of the, that brought like 20 boxes to the archives and have at it. This paperwork, it's a lot of paperwork, it's a lot of playlists and that type of thing, newspaper articles, blah, blah, blah. There's not a lot of media. I mean, there's some mini discs, there's some, some vinyl and that kind of things. It's kind of light on the actual, recordings, like we just heard Kim's air check. So I know Joel Ackerman was kind of starting a project to get some of that stuff. Anything y'all want to donate, that's sitting in a box at home, in a closet or a storage shed, please reach out to me. Because we need to get this stuff in the archives. It's important to have this material for future research for academics, because I think college radio, it's understudied. And I think that, there's going to be academic interest with this book, and other people are working on it too. I hope my project certainly spurs some of that as well. And then another issue I'd like to address, just as a historian, as a journalism person, it's great to have an alumni group and Facebook, and it's kind of got to be, approved for entry. I get all that. But remember, this is a private group, kind of hidden behind Facebook, And I put something on the website, and I hope I'm not overstepping my boundaries here. I feel passionate about this, that this should be public history. I mean, once we, it's closed up behind Facebook and we're having discussions and all that, that's great. But really, I mean, like WPRG, Princeton's radio station, which is not connected to the university per se, the license is owned by a board of directors outside of the university. They came up with a website. It's a 75-year anniversary website. It's got each decade there. People upload playlists and pictures and all this stuff, and it's open access. It's very easy. So that's something I'd certainly be interested in, in kind of getting out there, because like I said, as a historian, I like stuff in the public realm. Of course, the only thing we need to watch out for is you can't put music in the public realm because of rights and clearances issues. So when they put air checks, they strip out the air checks. They strip out the music. Because let's face it, we don't need to hear another REM song. I mean, whatever. but the DJ and the promos and the drops, that's the fascinating shit. I mean, that's the stuff that is RAS, self-produced stuff there. So, these are just kind of things I'm working on. And like I said, I'm in the 80s now. There's a couple of unicorns out there from the 70s. Tom West is one of them. He wants to do it. We never connected. There's a few other unicorns I need to get. But so I'm going in the 80s now, hope to finish that. Then I'll go into the 90s and then the 2000s and hopefully get all this done to eventually graduate. So that's my deal.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. There really would be very little observance of our 50th without him. Let's see, before we get into this officially, do I have the?
I'm not a cat.
I'm not a cat.
Judge, I'm ready to go.
I don't think that's the kind of mask you're wearing.
Do I hit my mute button? I'm sorry, I had
Hey, Joe. That's a great one, Joe.
I've been prepping that for a whole day.
Well
played.
All those
well
years on radio and no one knew you were a cat.
Yeah.
Just real quickly, Jeff, before you move on, I did put Andreas's email in the chat. So if all the alum would record a liner and email it to Andreas, his email is in the chat.
Yeah, and we're looking for your name, what you did, when you worked at your era, WRAS album 88, and happy 50th birthday or 50th anniversary. Those are the parameters. And if you want to put a song on there, that's fine. If not, I can produce it up with a music bed. And I also wanted to give a shout out to my WRAS wife. We have a platonic relationship, but it's Gail Harris. So Gail, she's been so.
Hi, Gail.
She's been so just giving me access to people's information and just talking me through the history of RAS. I mean, to have somebody like Gail, who is, just that kind of that preservationist, so Gail, we're face to face now. So thank you for all you've done for me in the project.
Hi, Gail.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Hey,
Hi,
everybody.
Gail. I have a Gail Harris archival book that Gail and I worked on together. Who remembers this? The album 88 anniversary party, the 15th anniversary party. Remember that party?
That was the first one. We did it in 85.
Yeah, that's right. So I found this booklet. It's in pristine condition. It has a letter from you, Gail, right here. It has a letter from Dean England and a photograph and a letter from Jeff and a letter from me and a lot of mini bios from a lot of people. So I will definitely make sure that, everybody can take a look at it. I don't know whether you saved yours, Gail, but I found mine. You do? Great.
Well, I'm not sure. It may be the second one, but I've got a stack of one of the two. I don't know.
Awesome.
Can you hold up the picture of Dean England? I've been trying to find that. He didn't turn the station on. It was Harvey that did it. But the pictures.
The picture. Can you see it? Can you see the picture?
I think the filter is wiping it out.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I will. Let me take a picture of it, and I'll.
George could hold his up.
George, you got to talk. You got to talk and hold at the same time so that you take over the screen.
Everybody's talking at the same time. It's hard to get a word in edgewise. I just found this.
Yeah.
Inside of this.
Okay.
It's a 15th anniversary, 15 years of music. Happy birthday, WRAS.
Yeah, that's what we did. We
put
Tuesday
it in magazine.
Yeah, from the Signal.
Right.
And that was a giveaway at the event.
Right.
The dance party. That was a fun party. Well, anyway, Gail, you were very involved with creating that document, that booklet. So, hi, George. So thank you.
Hi, George.
Hey, Jim. How was everybody?
100,000.
Okay, how are you?
Surviving COVID, working at home, trying to get to retirement.
So I guess this is going to be much more informal than the last time because there aren't as many people. So I see a few 70s folks here, a lot of 80s folks. So I was just going to say a few words, and then we're going to go through. I guess we're going to go through the GM list and find out who wants to talk. We can defer to the GMs for a few minutes, and then we'll talk about music or concerts or whatever the heck it is we want to. So the last time, hold up your hand, not by the computer, but hold up your hand if you saw either the original netcast or the replay of the 70s show. Anybody didn't see that? Okay, or you were there. Okay.
Great.
So that we don't need to talk as much, dry history about that. But obviously, I picked up with our switch to, well, after admitting that I made a horrible mistake and did the eclectic oriented rock format for about a month and a half that didn't go anywhere. We switched to the new music thing, and then it went on from there. That was the idea. And then I talked about the album, coming up with the Album 88 name, because the credits and I went and looked at the Arbitron diaries, and everybody was confusing us with WREK, WRFG, and what's the other? FG, EK, and what's the other? WR.
REK or FG.
AS, us. So you had three, mine like a steel sieve. So you had three WRs right next to each other, and then the ratings, people would say, "Oh, I love the Georgia Music Show on WREK or WRFG." So I was like, "Damn it, we got to fix this." So I sat down with someone who I guess doesn't want to be named, and we strategized about all this stuff and came up with it wasn't that it was a fantastic name. We weren't even that thrilled with the Album 88 name. It's just that we couldn't think of anything better. But at least it distinguished us and helped the ratings. And that was really the whole point, because we knew at that point we knew we were going to apply for the 100,000 watts. We needed the money, and I knew we were up front. We were going to need at least $200,000. Ended up being close to $500,000, and there was no way in hell the SGA was going to give us that much money unless we showed them, look, we're going after the average age of a Georgia State student. At that time, it was 27 years old. There were more women than men, so we were like, well, we're targeting for an 18 to 34 demographic here with a big nod to women, and so that's the whole reason why that came about. It wasn't so much wanting to change the name; it was just trying to get the ratings up. And at that time, we were paying for Birch ratings, and the Birch ratings were fairly similar to Arbitron, but not exactly. So we rocked along for a couple of years, and I think the best thing that you can say about the 80s is that they were stable. There weren't any big controversies or big much of anything. It was the music evolved, but the station was fairly stable. So let's see, who else? I think Joel, you want to?
Am I audible these days?
Sorry?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep. Good. I guess that's good.
So, I'm sorry. Should I go in order? I should go in order.
Well, I was going to say Bo.
Bo is next.
He looks younger than me, but he preceded me in the lineup.
Yeah, stability was the key word for me. I talked to Andreas on the phone yesterday, and Andreas, you were asking me, what I'm paraphrasing here, but what mark did I leave on the station? And my feeling was Jeff Walker handed me something very precious, and the point was not to put a mark on it. Don't scratch it, don't mess it up. It's fine the way it is. And so my whole modus operandi was just don't screw it up.
That's pretty simple.
Yeah,
keep the train on the tracks. Keep the train
on the tracks because it's running just fine. I was blessed to be surrounded by a highly competent staff. And so I basically just kept out of the way and let people who were good at what they did do what they did well. I don't know that I can really say much more about my time there. I didn't really accomplish anything other than keeping the lights on. But at that time, that was very important because Jeff had moved on to the bigger projects involved with the transmitter and the tower and the FCC and the Board of Regents and all of that stuff that needed to happen in order to turn the station into what it's become or what it became. But in order for him to be able to do that, the station had to be stable, and that was my mission. So
Tell them what you've been doing since.
oh God, since then, a lot of stuff. I'm the resident composer for the Atlanta Shakespeare Company. I've produced, yay, written a whole lot of music for them, written a whole lot of music for a whole lot of other people, done a lot of theater. Go to my website, musicforshakespeare.com. It's all one word. And you will see an enormous catalog of original compositions and recordings and all that sort of thing, all of which is just right there available for you and is sort of an indication of my life's work to this point. Classical guitar, I was telling Andreas yesterday, a classical musician, host of a classical music show and a progressive radio station, but that all seemed perfectly fine to me.
And I did want to interject before Bo tosses. Bo, you told me some great stories, and I don't know if you want to share them here. I ask a lot of the alums.
And high tides.
I asked the alums. So if I were to play one song that would capture the essence of you, like next week I want to play a song for you. Bo mentioned something. I was like, what? And he explained it, and it's just a great story. So
it was completely off the wall because I'm a prog rock guy. Yes, Genesis, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and all the lesser known bands in that category. That's where I live, and I'm also a classical music guy. And so for some reason though, and I figured it out, but when Andreas said, okay, what's one song that would just really define your time at WRAS? Without thinking and purely by reflex, I mean, it just popped out of my mouth all by itself. I said Green Grass and High Tides by the Outlaws. And Andreas and I were both kind of flummoxed by that song. Where did that come from? And it took me a while to figure it out. It was actually a couple of hours after we got off the phone that I put all the pieces together as to why that fell out of my mouth. But here's the story. I was filling in one night at the last minute on a 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. shift. Wasn't prepared for it, so I didn't have adequate rest going in. So about halfway through the shift, I'm in this, kind of hypnagogic state. Muscle memory is getting me through the shift, but I'm still taking requests and everything. So this phone rings. This woman with particularly attractive voice asked me to play Green Grass and High Tides. And something about it triggered my intuition that this was more, for her, it was more than just calling the radio station request a song. There was something significant about it. Although she didn't say as much, it's like just my intuition went off about that. And so I thought, well, why not? Something I'd pick for one of my free spots, but why not? Besides that, it's a long song. I could use a break. So next time I had an opportunity to play one of my own choices, I put on Green Grass and High Tides. While the song was playing, she called back, and we just, chatted casually. Although there was, and I cannot put my finger on it, partially because I just can't remember. There was something about the conversation, though, that just had this undertone of intimacy that you wouldn't ordinarily expect from that kind of thing. And so the song ended. I was still on the phone with her as I started the other turntable. And I don't know where that's coming from. She was particularly gracious about saying thank you. And once again, I just got the feeling that there was some significance here beyond just requesting a song, but I didn't know what it was. But, we hung up the phone, and that's the beginning, the middle, and the end of that story. But the moment has stuck with me for decades. Mm-hmm. And it was just the feeling, I'm going to cry about this. It was just the feeling of having done something special for somebody in the dark hours before dawn.
Yeah.
And that is just one of my most cherished memories of working at the station.
Here's something to make you feel even better, Bo. A signed picture by all those guys. and yes.
Yeah, oh, how wonderful. Yeah.
With the guy and the singer there, whatever his name is, he's from Chattanooga, of all things.
Holy cow.
Anyway.
Really?
The new John.
Yeah, that was a beautiful story. So Bo, thanks for sharing that. That was, and then when you wrote the email follow-up, I was like, that's such a touching, and people have that people have that experience with radio, whether it's you personally, that you hear a song, you're like, oh my God, my eyes have been opened.
Yeah.
And it could be one song. And that song, for all intents and purposes, was delivered by WRAS. And, I was speaking to David Lowry, who was Camper Van Beethoven over. And his wife, Valina is a hello. Valina is like a booker. She does a 40 watt. And she said she heard I Am a Human Fly by the Cramps. And like, boom, her light bulb went off. Like, dude, that was on RAS. And I was like, it changed the course of her life. I mean, she picked up a guitar. She started playing punk rock, a girl group. And that's the connection. I mean, that's the really cool thing. You had a very personal moment with somebody unknown.
Yeah.
Just somebody you never knew, Bo. And it is touching. It is touching. It's a very important memory to preserve. So thanks for sharing that.
Yep. You're welcome.
I think I asked Paul Mazurkowitz to show up, but I don't think he's here. Is Paul here? So we're jumping to George. Were you next? Or was there anything else you wanted to say, Bo?
No,
I think Joel's next.
I'm good. Go.
Joel would be next after Paul, and then me.
Okay, go ahead.
In addition to your classical music and compositions, Bo, I remind you too. When I was in the GSU Players production of West Side Story, you did some great guitar work with Leonard Bernstein's score. So.
Oh, no kidding!
Thanks again for that.
That was throughout the 80s, I did a lot of theater work. I bragged that, name a job that you can do on a stage, over a stage, under a stage, in front of a stage, or behind a stage, and I have done that job at least once for somebody somewhere. But that included playing in a lot of pit orchestras, and West Side Story was one. I have a particularly fond memory of that production. Playing guitar for GSU players doing West Side Story, because I wish I could remember the name of the pianist in that pit orchestra. An extraordinarily talented musician, who basically
I can't remember his name, but I remember him being exceptional.
No kidding. I mean, no fucking kidding exceptional. Because what he had in front of him on the piano was not a piano score. It was the full orchestral score. And he was doing a piano reduction at sight. And yes, I know people can do that, but I'd never actually seen anybody do that. But and I had the privilege of being seated just directly behind him, so that I could not only watch him do that, but I could actually see the score as well. I had the guitar part in front of me, but he had the whole orchestral score in front of him. And I knew that the music was extraordinarily good. Leonard Bernstein, of course it's good.
It was the great production.
But it wasn't until I actually saw the score and could just see it on the page and kind of analyze it. It's like, oh my God, this is extraordinary music, and so that's my particularly fond memory of that particular production.
Bo, don't forget though, you also appeared on an LMNOP cassette on Everything Is Going to End, your composition with fugue. Remember that?
Oh my God, no.
I have it. You
I
had me
I
playing the
believe you.
I played the Casio and
I
and then
believe you, but yeah.
Gail has everything. Gail has everything.
Well, Gail,
no, but
Gail, there's something I hope you have.
what?
You know, if I had one memento from my time at RAS, it would be that promo that I did for Keeping Ahead in the Classics with Caroline Murray's father.
People still talk about it. There's a Facebook page for Atlanta musicians, and someone talked about that promo with Caroline's father saying, you know, with Bo Ketchum and Gail Harris with that New Jersey accent, but I never had the tape. I thought you would.
Her dad was the coolest. I knew that guy. He was like the freaking coolest guy. Sam was just
Yes.
Is somebody saying yes, they have the recording?
No, I don't have the recording. Yes, Sam was cool.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I would dearly love to have that promo, but oh well.
I remember that forever. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so who's up next,
Right, right.
Joel?
So, yeah, I think I'd have to echo part of Bo's sentiment, which was it was clear that we had a station that was on the right track, that had something good going for it. It was a nice niche where, you know, we were filling a void in a major market. And about that time, it seems like 96 Rock, before they went classic rock, they dabbled in the new music thing, or at least were playing the rock that had one toe in the new wave, you know, as almost everything did right in the earliest part of the 80s. But we were not repeating what was being done anywhere else. And it seemed like a good plan. There was no need to come in and start trying to change things. And when I'm really talking to the time when I was more program director and even the assistant before that, where it was just again, it was clear that there was a good thing going on, and just the fact that it was designed not only as a great radio station and as the voice of GSU and had responsibilities in that respect, but also you know, for the students' sake, you know, it was better for a newscaster. If this is a person who wanted to go into journalism, it was a serious news department with a serious effort to inform the audience in a way that was responsible and mature and all those good things. And with the music, you know, if you want to be in the music biz, you know, you couldn't do any better than to have experience at the station. And so many people, you know, went on to the next chapter of their lives in that business. And if you wanted to be a DJ, you know, this was closer to the real world than, you know, you might find at a typical station where you're talking to the cows at 2 a.m. and parading around as Dr. Mikey. You know what I mean? It's like it was a for real training ground. So it was a legitimate part of the university experience, and was great for anybody who wanted to be in any part of communications, journalism, music, you name it. As in my managerial role, or before that, you know, I got in the enviable position of training people, and I took it as sort of my cross to bear. I was told right away, here's how you sign off if you don't have somebody for the 2 to 6. And I was like, I just don't ever want to do that. And for better or worse, I would haul down there. I'd say, if you have to leave, sign off, I'll sign us back on. I would go on in the middle of the night. There's a limit to how much of that anybody can do, no matter how noble or crazy you are. And then it became increasingly important to have really good people that we were training who, you know, I only wanted to train people who were serious about it, who really wanted to be there. And I think that, you know, those people and their desire and their seriousness about doing a good job is what gets most of the credit for our great sound. And you got people like Valerie Pittman, you could call her. I'm telling you, dedication like that, you know, we had a lot of it. But, you know, I'd be like, I can't come down there at 6 a.m. and I would call other people, and rightfully so. They were like, "It's 6 o'clock on Saturday," and I can't tell you how many times Val Williams, Steve Pittman, came down there and pulled another shift, and just we stayed on the air, and it was great. So I'm just really grateful for all the people that went that extra mile. Todd, that was a brilliant decision of mine to have you there, because you're a guy who gets things done. You always were, and there's so many things that we were able to do because of your presence, and your predecessor, Laura Hines, was great, of course. But I worked with you closely, and you really made things happen. It's great to have ideas, but you were a doer and you got things done. And I probably never gave you as much credit for that as you deserve. So thanks again. But anyway, it was just about, Jeff, you're too kind. There were a couple of rough spots in the 80s where some people were not being the team players they should have been. There was some division that was starting to happen, and that got nipped in the bud. Some people were happy about the way it happened. Some people weren't. It was the right thing to get past it. But we rode that out, and the station was better for it. And I guess we had, we led into some of our best, most popular, that's the right word, best ratings, I guess, years. People in the 80s, you'd have to tell me whether that's true or not. But we really had the right crew to make something valuable and something successful become even more successful. And I deserve the credit for not getting in the way too much to stop that from happening. Really, kind of like what Bo said. It was I think I did some things that were that were noticeable input at the time, but mainly it was trying to keep the DJs happy and the King Buttermores happy at the same time. that balancing act that you have to do, and you really don't make anybody completely happy, but hopefully you treat people with respect. And I think that balancing act paid off because we had the respect of our school, and the administrators, but we also, were able to provide a place for people to express maybe not their innermost feelings on the air, but themselves musically, and to develop their talents. So anyway, that's one more thing I would say is, and I sent a letter to Acting President Becker right after the GPB thing happened or whatever, and said this, and I said, WRAS has had a reputation that actually preceded and exceeded Georgia State's diversity and inclusion, and expressed it in a way that people heard out there. And I know a lot of people who went to Georgia State because of the idea they had of Georgia State based on what they heard on Album 88. They thought it sounded like an urban, inclusive, forward-thinking school, and they went because of that. And I think that's something. So it's a valuable asset to the university still, and they should, in my opinion, they should make more of that, because it's a chance to really be to show through example the ideals that they hold up in their written recruitment materials.
Hey, Joel, I thought that you might want to say something about how hard it is to be general manager and discipline people, make people do what they're supposed to do, follow the book, rule book, but still have, it's just, if you're in your early 20s, late teens, early 20s, to me, it was really hard to, we did it, but it was, you knew who your friends were at the end of the term.
Well, yeah, some people, they just want to say the F word on the air. and because they think that's the idea of being cool on the air, and you can't allow it, and that means you're not a friend, I guess, and you can't play songs that say, screw you and during morning drive and all that stuff. And it doesn't make for popular decisions, but most people did understand it. I feel like we had a really good crew from the newest DJ on up, and there were very few DJs that left at all that I trained. The ones that did, it happened really quickly. It was only a couple of them, but most people were dead serious about doing a good job, and they followed the rules and grinned and bore it. Would that be the past tense? And it all worked out. And again, I'm proud of whatever I did there, but I'm not foolish enough to think for a second that I deserve a lion's share of credit when there were at any given time, 75 plus people who were making that clock go 24/7. So it was everybody.
Can I interject, just kind of riding on what Joel was saying? And Joel, that is a very important part of my study here. My thesis is that WRAS is worth preserving, and here's why. And the proof you just gave, and the proof all the alums, many of them have given about their careers and how the station served them well in their careers, whether they went into professional broadcasting or the record labels or marketing communications, or even jobs at AT&T, which seemed to be kind of a pipeline. A lot of alums who go to work at AT&T, I guess they had jobs, they got money, Hello, oh, right.
My offer letter got lost in the mail, I think.
And I reached out to Becker, President Becker, for our 50th anniversary through his PR maven, Andrea Jones, say if he would just issue a statement. Congratulations. Look, it's one of the oldest continually run student organizations that doesn't revolve around sports or fraternity or Greek life, and nothing, crickets, And even now I'm like, dude, just something, a statement. So, I don't know about all that, but it is interesting to hear these stories of the alums and how they went on. So the station is worth preserving, and not just because of what it could potentially lead to, a career but the voice of Georgia State students. I mean, that is a very, very important thing to have, and any great university has that voice for the for the students, by the students. And my wife went to Vanderbilt. She worked at WRVU. They sold that station off for $3 million like 15 years ago. It was just, horrible for her and the rest of the alums in Nashville. But yeah, that just speaks to what, my thesis, Joel, is to show why RAS was important, why it's still important, and why it should continue to be important as the voice of the Georgia students on campus.
It's impossible to, first of all, for me to recall basically what I had for breakfast, but certainly not all the people that 30 odd years ago were involved. But I certainly didn't mean to omit George Watts, who he was what a luxury to have George for program director. He was and I'm sure still is, just such a conscientious person. Always wanted to do the right thing, not only by the station, but by the people. That was an important thing I remember about, my relationship with George, was he looked out for the human element as well as the technical. Jennifer Grossbert and Kim Turner, music was their life, and they shared that with us and the listeners. Kim Sade, and others, who just loved and knew everything about the music. I could name a lot of people, and that elevated our on-air product immeasurably. So
it helped a lot. It helped a lot when you had a team like we had. Everybody put all they had into what they were doing, and that made all the difference to me.
And talk about diversity. George, you and I and Dave Cohen, of course, he's still right there, but he made our sports sound good. But you and me and Dave Cohen and so many of the people, we were friends. We were not carbon copies of one another by any stretch. We had our different interests, our different slants on everything. But I mean, I wish the whole world could work as well as we did in that environment with our differences and our common goals, and it was a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it was. Yes, it was.
That
I was a
was
short-lived member of the Dweebs, by the way, too. Remember
You
that?
were.
Remember the band, the Dweebs? I was in it briefly.
I think that's why you're known as the one who was smart enough to get out.
That's right.
Okay, you ready?
You were the one who was smart enough to get out.
All right, are we ready to throw it to George 100,000?
I'd like to, jump in. Can I say something really quick? Andreas, you were talking about the silence from the president's office. I was going to suggest that if there were an open letter saying the things that you want to say, I'm sure we would all sign it.
Well, I was only reaching out to him for the anniversary, just a statement from the president of the university, nothing involving anything else, really. That whole other issue, which, look, Becker's leaving in June.
Yeah.
Somebody new will be in. Maybe that's a new person with a fresh start, with a new perspective.
Yeah.
I'm certainly not, putting any hope out there. I really don't know if these things have ever been reversed in the past. I'm sure they have, because every scenario exists in the world of media.
Yeah.
But yeah, my request, Bo, was strictly for marking the anniversary. So,
okay.
And he's still got time, and I'm still working it. So
yeah. And
go ahead, Bo. Excuse me.
Yeah. My other comment was just to riff on what Joel said a little bit. You were talking about there's a limit to how many times you can jump in and fill a 2 to 6 a.m. shift. I can tell you exactly what that limit is. That's all.
Well, my journalism professor, so that was my major. That's not where I spent my time. I spent my time at the station, and my grades will reflect that. But my fine professors would jump all over me for burying the lead, really, because it was during my GM tenure that we went to 100,000 watts.
Yeah.
And that was a big deal. It still is, I guess, in some respects. But, I was honored. I didn't, again, I benefited from being at the right place at the right time. Bo, Jeff Walker, of course, Dean Fry. I mean, I'm probably not remembering the whole list very well, but did so much for so long to get us there. And I felt sheepish even then. I got to go up and help push the button to launch the 100,000 watt changeover, which Harvey had actually rigged. I think so. It actually did it. It wasn't just a prop. Anyway, so that was a great honor. But I think I'd let Jeff talk more about what that meant and what led up to it, because that was a proud moment, but that's not really my story. So
even though George got the moniker George 100,000 watts, right?
Yeah, and I'm trying to live that down ever since. But that came at that switchover came toward the end of your tenure, Joel, and I was just there to kind of shepherd it through the next full year and see. We had the bigger exposure, and I wanted to make sure everything was, the continuity was still there that we had with, all the good people we had, and just to keep the station going. And now that it was 100,000 watts, it was even more, a bigger profile to have to maintain. So, but again, that's all I can really say too much. I can't really build much more on what Joel and Bo have already said about their experiences as GM. It was just keeping this gorgeous boat afloat and on the right course, as it always has been, because of the work of Jeff Walker, for the most part, a lot of that. But my experiences at Album 88 are among the best in my life, and because of the people there, because of the experiences I had. I came out of I started in 82 and I came out of like the 2 years before that. John Lennon was killed. My mom died the year after that. So I was kind of like in a floundering position. I didn't really know where I was, what direction my life was headed. And Album 88 was a godsend. It really was. I mean, I grew up listening to great radio in Chicago, WXRT and WLS and all those stations then. And I always thought it'd be kind of a fun thing to do. So, you know, when I went to Georgia State that year in 82, and I went to the initiation and the orientation for Album 88, I thought this sounds like fun. I'm going to try this. And I was there, you know, like I said, from 82 to 88, enjoyed every minute of it, had some just awesome experiences with people and getting to meet famous people and not so famous people and getting to spin records on the air. What more fun can how much more fun can you have doing that? I mean, that was a blast. It really was. It really was. That's it. I don't know what else I can say.
It was fun working with you, George. It was a lot.
Yeah, it was.
Joel,
I mean, obviously everybody knows the Yoko. Oh, and I was going to say, you know, you
got to talk about Yoko.
You've got this thing coming up on the 18th. Well, the 18th just happens to be Yoko's 88th birthday. So how appropriate is that?
Hey, George, what year did you get it to go 100,000 watts?
Well, I get Jeff. The year was it 87, 87?
86, I think.
Yeah, it went on, the switch was flipped in 87.
In 87, okay.
We were building it in 86.
Right.
Cool, because it had 19,500 watts. It had a good signal back then because it was coming off of Channel 30's tower, right? So it had a good signal at 19,500 watts, but man, going to 100,000 watts, it
was a big boost.
Been big.
Yeah, the biggest thing about this is the only thing I'll say about the tower thing is that we were wanting to expand the signal as much as we could to cover the future expansion of Georgia State students expanding up to Rome and Gainesville and down to Macon. But the other thing was building penetration. The more power you have, the more wattage you have, the deeper you get into the crevices of office buildings. So both of those things help. The bad thing though is that we were the worst multipath station in town because we had too many bays. We couldn't afford more juice into the antenna to get less multipath. So we had a horrible multipath problem, but you know, what are you going to do? The further away you got from Atlanta, the better that got. So Bo, is that it, Bo?
Yes, sir.
The only other thing I can add on to my experience was that my experience at Album 88 springboarded me into a career in radio, and that's where I've been ever since. I've been with J-Core, Clear Channel, iHeart for 30 something years. And, you know, my experience at Album 88 is what got me there. So that's it.
Thank you for training me, George Watts. I appreciate it.
Oh, it was a pleasure, Kim. You were great.
George, I think you should tell your story about Yoko only.
Say again?
I said, I think you should tell a little bit about your Yoko only show and how you got to meet her from that.
Wow. Geez, where do I begin? Well, I remember that there was this compilation album coming out of her stuff that other artists had recorded, Elvis Costello and Roseanne Cash and Trio and a few other artists. And I'd always wanted to do some kind of special about an appreciation of her work musically. And I think I even included talking about some of her paintings and her word poetry and all that too. But I knew this album was coming out and I thought, well, I'd like to put together this show. We can promote the album at the same time, at that point. And I just decided to give it a shot and called somebody at the record company that was putting the record out. They in turn got me in touch with her office manager. And I talked to them about arranging an interview for this show. I wanted to do this retrospective of her music, and again, and also to help talk about the album that they were putting out. And that's how that happened, really. I wasn't sure if that would have really actually happened or not. I mean, I thought, well, I'll give it a shot and see what happens. I mean, a few years after John had died, I don't know how open she was to some guy in Atlanta, Georgia, wanting to do in a college radio station of all things, wanting to do an interview with her. But to my shock, she was very amenable to it. They put me in touch and we arranged the interview. They were all phoners. And they also put me in touch with people that were working on the album, like Roseanne. I got to interview her over the phone, and Klaus Vorman, who produced Trio and was part of the project, and who worked with Yoko and John, of course, back in the day. And so I got to interview all these other people. I remember doing the Elvis Costello at CBS
with
Records,
me.
I think. That was with you. That's right. We were sitting around a table. I just remember him getting really pissed at me, asking all these Yoko questions, wondering, because he had an album out too. And we did get to those eventually, but yeah, he was like, what's all these Yoko questions for? But that was great. And so I put together the show, and it was a 4-hour, 2-part show I did over consecutive weekends. And then the next year, we were going up, a group of us from the station were going up for, I think it was either the New Music Seminar or some college radio convention in New York. And I wanted to see if I can arrange to meet her. And she was amenable to that too. So I got to meet her at the Dakota in her office. And
you left out a part where you actually sent her the show.
Oh yes,
and it arrived, and they were listening to it on John and Sean's birthday.
And I said, what? Say that again?
I said that you had sent the tape to her of your show, and they were listening to it on John and Sean's birthday with a bunch of guests.
Now I didn't know it was his birthday. That was the other part of the story I was going to say. After I met her, that was a big thrill, obviously, to be able to meet her. In her office. I remember even having to take off my shoes, as she always likes to require people before they walk in. And it was great. I met with her for maybe half an hour, and I don't even remember what we talked about anymore at all, but I just remember getting some swag at the end of it. And it was, got to sit on the couch with her. I had my picture taken with her.
I have that picture posted as well as George's special in that Album 88 folder. I'm going to post the link over here.
So that was a thrill, being able to I always wanted to meet John. That was the closest I was going to ever get to do that. But I've always wanted to meet Yoko too, because she's been an inspiration to me all my life. So that happened. But as Gail was talking about, the best story for me, the one that hits me the most, is I was coming back from a class, a late afternoon class, walked into the radio station, and the first thing I hear when I walked in, somebody, I forgot who was on the phone, who had picked up the phone, but somebody had just said as I walked in, "Oh, he just walked in," and it was Yoko's office. And now I don't remember that it was Sean's birthday. Well, I guess it was October 9th, and they were in her apartment with her and Sean and other friends, and they were listening to the show I sent to them. And she liked it so much, she called to tell me that they were doing that. And even more than meeting her, that was like something that I created that about her, that I don't know. It was just an amazing thing to be able for her to do that. She didn't have to do that at all. And it was just really touching for that to happen.
Cool.
From one artist to another.
And somewhere we still have, I'll try to dig it up, Adrian. We've got a station ID from her as well. And I've got station IDs from other people too. So I'll dig those up and send those to you as well.
I didn't realize, I saw the list about yesterday or something about the people that were planning to attend. And there's several people on here that I didn't know were going to attend. So we were in a different frame of mind. We said this is going to be about the 80s. We were sort of thinking about the new music genre, but we started the 80s with Mike Garrison. You want to say something?
Hey, Mike.
Oh, I think I've probably said enough over the years to, oh, I don't know what happened to my camera. Can you still hear me?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I have no idea what happened with my camera. But no, the only thing I can say is that it was a lot of fun. It was an interesting time. Some good things, some bad things, but I had about a 3-hour conversation. I guess it was Andreas. And a lot of the stuff, quite candidly, it's been 40 some years I forgot about completely. But bottom line, I met a lot of nice people, made a lot of good memories, and thoroughly enjoyed myself.
Cool. Well, Michael, I've got to ask you this question because we barely talked in the many decades since I was there as a manager anyway. Was that well, I can say one thing for sure since I was on the staff and I got to be in meetings is that in the 70s, the administration had a perception of the long-haired hippie arts and sciences people being a bunch of dope smoking fiends that they didn't like, to be honest. And so I was there any I mean, when you were, I don't know who you were running against or who anybody else was, your predecessor was running against, but on the student, the CSC, the Committee on Student Communications, was the people that voted for the GMs between say 78 and 81. Do you think that was a factor in who they chose?
Probably, candidly, yeah. Now, this is something that again, we talked to Andreas about. I know that the perception, and I'm trying to fiddle with my camera at the same time. I know the perception was that it was Buttermore, Baggett. This is really before Dean Fry. That I was in there to clean house, basically. And I don't remember, and Brodsky was there, if he's still around, I'm not sure. Yeah, there he is. I don't remember at any point in time that Dean Buttermore, Dean Baggett, or anybody said, this is what I want you to do. I just don't remember that at all.
Yeah, I think at the time we changed the music a little bit, and I think a lot of people. I was always on the periphery. I was doing a lot of other things at the university, and so I was never in there all day long like a lot of people were. But to answer your question, Jeff, I think the way I remember it is that there was some upheaval there a little bit, but with Carl and Michael and everybody coming in there. And assuming the general manager's role over the late 70s. But I think we changed the music a little bit. And I think a lot of people I remember a lot of people being upset about that.
Oh, yeah. And this is what, and again, I think I said it to Andreas. Yes, we did change the music a bit. But I think it was a lot less severe of a change than people perceived on one side of the fence. And candidly, on our side of the fence, if you will, we probably changed it more than we should have. But if you listen to an air check from James Starbucks was here a while back, he was the general manager before me. If you listen to a typical 1 hour broadcast or 2 hour broadcast from his tenure or Carl Jackson's tenure, and then compared it to mine, and then compared it to the folks that came after me, I really don't think you'd hear a whole lot of difference. And I think it's just emotions got out of hand, perceptions got people made certain perceptions and weren't willing to change their mind on both sides. And it's kind of like politics now. We weren't talking with each other, we were talking at each other. And it was unfortunate, but, huh?
And we were all kids too.
Oh, yeah, but I just think it was probably it got blown out of proportion more than it should have, I think, on both sides.
And Mike, I've got one other, since I got one other question. It was my perception that there was, or at least my only complaint was that there was too much crossover 96 Rock. I mean, it seemed to me that the music that, I don't know whether Dane was that close to the music industry, the record reps or not, but it seemed to me that I would imagine that the record reps were coming in saying, hey, this, I don't know, what's a 1979 artist, Bob Seger, or whoever the hell it would be, Styx or whatever, that if 96 Rock was playing an album, you weren't playing the hits, but you were playing the deeper cuts, which emphasized the sales for it. It helped promote the albums that 96 already had. I guess that was my perception. Was that an intentional? Well, you can disagree with that, but was that an intentional approach?
All right. Do you remember the Sunshine Show with Brad Burkhardt?
Oh, yeah.
All right. The two of us got to be close during that period in time. And he kind of gave me some tools that his father used. And we weren't, and I remember years ago, Jim Morrison, I saw he was on the show or on the Zoom call. He had some kind of public access or PBS or some show. And I remember talking to him about it. And we would play deep cuts like you were saying. But we still had stuff that no one else was playing, probably not to the percent of what it was before me or after me. But I think we still had some of what I would call the classic RAS. Not as much, but I think we still had a good bit of it.
Laura, did Laura want to say something? I lost her. Oh, there you are. Did you want to say something?
Wow, what's going on with my camera?
Yeah,
There
Laura,
I am. Yeah, I'm here.
Did you
I'm
want
here.
to say something? There was a hand raised symbol on
Oh,
your
I'm sorry. No, I was trying to do a chat, fat finger moment. But yeah, at some point when, it's my turn, I'd love to share a few words.
Can I jump in, Jeff, with Michael here? And Michael and I spoke for 2 hours, and Michael, thank you so much for that. I mean, Joel, you mentioned division, and that is a typical story that one sees, right, in human history, right? Division, animosity, this side versus that side. I mean, but that whole kind of look, Carl Jackson told me that when he became GM, people were threatening to resign and quit, and they were going to change everything, and oh my God, the station continued. Same with Mr. Garrettson here. He said, he spoke for himself for 2 hours. It was great, fascinating stuff here. But Michael also said, he's coming in. He knew, people knew what he was going to do. Yet, people did quit, and there was allegations, pretty nasty allegations of theft, vandalism, hiding things, locking things away in cabinets. I mean, this is all public record, because I'm a journalist and I wasn't there, but I can read the Georgia State Signal online. And that's what Michael and I talked about. And also just, people were hurt, feelings were hurt, people were traumatized from what they told me. So this is a very disruptive moment, and not surprising, because like we all just said, 20, these are late teens, 20. You're basically running a very powerful media entity, a radio station. So yeah, it's interesting to hear Michael speak about those times, because I think when I spoke to Michael, it was just kind of bringing up some stuff that you wouldn't really think about. So it's just interesting to have that conversation with him, and these questions you were asking are very pertinent, and also to the history of the station. So.
And I will say, Mike, that and I said this, I don't know if you were in the 70s Zoom we had in January, but
no, I wasn't. I missed it.
Well, what I said back then, there was an allusion to the turmoil between the 78 and 92 period, and I was saying, well, the system was set up so that the CSC selected the general manager, and the general manager basically they could do what they wanted as long as they didn't break the FCC rules. And if we had a choice between the communications department running it and random students running it, I think we were better off. In fact, I know we were better off, because the students, who else can program to an 18 to 34 demographic than people in that category? If you had somebody my age trying to program for students right now, it would be a huge failure. I'd be clueless. So I would rather have the stuff happen that happened. I mean, when you put something, 18, 19, 20-year-old people running something, geez, and crow, it's amazing we survived 50 years at all.
I was going to say, I don't think that there was any less drama in any time that I was there. I just think that that's just the nature when you've got a lot of people that are passionate about music and about, who's doing what and everything, you just got to chalk it up to, late teens, early 20s guys that, just really feel strongly about stuff. It happened. Gosh, I was there from 84 to the early 90s, and it happened plenty.
Yeah, I think you're right. But when it really comes down to it, whichever side of the fence you were on, in some ways, we really weren't that far apart, but we just refused to see the other side or take into account somebody else's opinion. And that was on both sides. And I just think that I enjoyed the time. I really don't have any hard feelings towards anybody. I hope they don't have any hard feelings towards me. But I just wish we could have listened better to each other.
Well, that's a good point. Is there anything else you want to say, Mike, before we pass? I think that would have covered all the GMs, right? I was going to move to the music directors next, but Michael, you want to say anything else?
No, I would, again, I said this to Andreas. He mentioned to me that there are still people that feel traumatized or have hard feelings. I would do whatever I could to sit down, talk to them, meet them for a beer, and just say, hey, let's talk about this. Let's work it out. If I have moved on into other things and only have fond memories of the station, but if somebody has an issue, hey, let's talk, let's sit down, extend the hand of friendship and try to, if they were hurt, try to ease that hurt.
And Mike, I'll say the same thing about me. I'm sure I fired a few people in my time, and there's two or three that I felt very strongly that I was correct, but I would have given them a second chance now, being a smarter and older person, a wiser person now.
Absolutely. I did not go into radio. I went to work for our family business. And I wish I could say that I learned a lot of lessons at the radio station because it really didn't carry over to the business we were in. But one thing it did make me realize is you know, take a deep breath, sit back, think for a minute before things get heated. I think when the stuff was going on at the radio station, we were just firing back and forth without even thinking about what we were doing. And I think it was bad for both sides.
Yeah, I fired somebody, for example, because they were taking our free tickets and standing out in front of the venue and selling them. And after that went on for about 2 months, I was so PO'd that I said, no, I said, I'm not going to risk this 100,000 watt tower because there's a scandal because you're skimming off the radio station. I'm not going to have that. You're fired. And I really should have just said, okay, you take a month off, you're suspended, don't do it again. But, you know, that was being too, whatever you call it, too reactionary.
All right. One of these things that if I remember it, I don't remember. You were talking about some of the stuff that went on. Do you remember? I'm going to send you a private message about a person's name that I'm not going to broadcast it. All right, did you see that? All right.
We could spend all day, Mike, talking about that.
I know. What I was told was that individual was taking stuff and going to Wax and Facts, I guess it was, or some.
Oh, wait, Mike, I got to interrupt. Todd, is the recording of this going to have the chat messages publicly available?
It will not.
Oh, thank God. All right, yeah, go ahead, Mike.
All right, well, he was, you talk about things you should have done or shouldn't have done. I didn't realize he was allegedly taking stuff to Wax and Facts, selling records, pocketing the money, having fun. Now, when he first told me that, I was like, oh, I can't believe that. That couldn't have happened. Maybe he just got a promotional copy that the record companies hand out and didn't realize, I guess, allegedly was taking records from the station and selling them. I don't know, but I just couldn't believe, some of the stuff that was going on. And looking back, I should have fired him, but I didn't know it. And then I look at some of the people that either quit or got fired, and I was like, yeah, probably shouldn't have done that. Looking back, probably could have been handled a little better, but I think I was 19 or 20 when I got elected the first time. So,
did anybody run against you the second time, just out of curiosity?
You know what? I know I can't remember who ran against. I know James was before me. Reifenberger was after me. I couldn't tell you who ran against me the first time and who ran against me the second time. But you're right. You're talking about this, but the Committee on Student Communications. What I did is I went and actually cultivated their vote. I went and met with each of them privately, one-on-one before each election. And I think that helped more than whether that person was in Greek life or whether that person wasn't in Greek life or whatever. I think that was just making the one-on-one contact with them, and basically showing them the respect and whatever. But since there were a lot of common things I shared with them, maybe that helped too. I don't know.
Yeah, it did. The in-person thing, somebody gave me a tip about that, and I did that for 2 years in a row. I wish I could remember that guy's name that did contracts. He was the contracts officer for the university, and I'm sure he's passed on now, but he was sort of a squirrely guy, and I could tell in my first time that I ran against Reifenberger that he didn't like me. And so I had to go back, well, I won't bore everybody with the story. It took a long time for me to make friends with other people to try to get to him, to get him to not vote me down.
Yeah, where was his office? Do you remember?
Yeah, precisely. It was the ground floor of Sparks Hall, and it looked out over that little mini partially sunlit plaza in the middle of Sparks Hall.
Oh gosh, black hair.
No, he's probably 70 or 80 years old, and he had very thin hair. Well, anyway,
no, I don't remember him.
Well, this is boring for everybody else. I guess we should move on unless she has another point. We need to get to the music.
Well, no, just that, you know, I made a lot of friends, probably pissed a lot of people off. Tried to do what at the time I thought was the right thing to do. Tried not to really hurt anyone deliberately or maliciously. Hope the same for them. And I'd love to sit down and talk to anybody about it and have a beer and try to get them past it if they're still upset about it.
All right, that's cool. Music. Let's see. I'm sorry that oh Jesus, Jennifer Grossberg, who's now under a different last name. She had to bail out. I'm really, if I'd known she was going to bail, I would have said, well, I'd give her a chance to talk, because she was the first new music director.
Well, I can't get my camera to work, and we're finished with my time. So it was fun. Good to see everybody that I know. Good to see the people I don't know.
Good to see you, Mike.
Good to see you, Mike.
Yeah, it was the one thing that we all share was a love for the radio station. Sometimes, and I think people think my love was misguided, and I can appreciate that. But enjoyed it. And you all have a good rest of your Sunday and Valentine's Day.
You too, Mike. Hey, Mike, I don't know if you saw my note over there in the
Mike.
comments.
I'm sorry?
I don't know if you saw my note over there in the comments, but my husband was saying, hey, he rushed me in 1979, so.
Your microphone was, I couldn't hear what she said.
Hey, Kim, let me translate. She said her husband, that you rushed, or he rushed you, whatever, y'all rushed each other, something, and it's 1979, and he says hello, Kim's husband.
What's her husband's name?
John Simshauser.
I couldn't hear.
John Simshauser.
Did he pledge in my pledge class?
You rushed him, but he ended up going to.
Oh, so I was like Eric Stratton, damn glad to meet you. Have a beer, it's free.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of beer, I'm going to go have me a beer and sit down and spend some quality time with my wife. Y'all take care, and we'll see you later.
Thanks for coming, Mike.
Bye. Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me. See you.
See you.
Huh. Interesting.
Well, if our country could be like that, we wouldn't have the trouble we are in.
Mm-hmm. Well, I did, it was just interesting to have Michael on the call and just doing my story here to hear his side. It's very interesting, and I hope that illuminated some things for some people or not. I don't know, but
Andreas, I spent a good chunk of my morning digging up email addresses, and so I saw a lot of people show up today that I know got my email at the last minute. So I'm happy that worked out, because it was a chore, but next time it'll be easier now that I've got some headers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was interesting conversation there, and I don't know if y'all knew a lot about that, but one of the first times I spoke to somebody about the station, they said, oh, wait till you get to the Garretson years. So, it was great to hear from him, and certainly lay out.
Steve Brodsky was a big part of that, as well as Carl.
Yeah, I know Brodsky. I know Brodsky and I spoke. Yeah. So, so yeah, that's it's just fascinating.
Not everybody here knows Steve, and Steve, you didn't get a chance to talk about rat reviews.
Right.
Oh yeah. You guys, does anybody remember
Sub-Zero, right, Steve?
What? Yeah, I was Sub-Zero. That's right.
Sub-Zero right there.
Yep. Yeah.
Our first punk show, guys.
There you go.
That's right. That was it was the best story of that was John Wynn and I did this. If anybody remembers John Wynn from the mid-70s. Now I haven't talked to him since the end of the show, since I graduated in 79. But we did a show. It was right. Does anybody remember? Did you guys continue to simulcast Fanfare from PBS from Channel 30? Did anybody remember that?
I don't even remember that, and I was there in 76.
Yeah, we used to simulcast it. I think it was every Tuesday night from 8 to 9, because back then TV speakers, there was no such thing as the cool bars that go under the TV and that kind of stuff like there is now. But it used to be, TV sound was not great, and so people were watching Channel 30 and watching this PBS Fanfare show, which was they had classical guitar and flamenco guitar and Ravi Shankar and all these people on there. They were playing the sitar and all this stuff. And then we would come in right when it was over and take it back to WRAS at 9 o'clock and start Rat Review. And so that was always a lot of fun. We started it off with moms and dads, lock up your daughters, shut the windows, lock the doors. It's time for Rat Review. And this was right when, right in the days when the CBGBs and the Mud Club and all that stuff was just starting. And, we played all that stuff, which we didn't play too much of during the week at the time. Every month it got a little bit more and a little bit more into the regular playlist of the station. But, there was a time we were playing, Tuesday nights from 9 to midnight, we were playing, John Wynn and I. John was King Rat, I was Sub-Zero, and we were playing stuff, that from London and the Sex Pistols and the, all that stuff. It was really a lot of fun.
Cool. But we're getting sort of late. I don't want to miss the music directors. Since Jennifer is not with us, Kim, or were you the next? Well, then Jane. Okay, and Jane's not here, so Val, it's yours.
All that.
Yeah, Jennifer actually, I hate that she's not here. She was the one that actually helped train me and kind of teach me how to do stuff. So it was fun. I just remember her saying, I'm not programming for myself, And that's one thing I think people didn't realize or never thought about. It was just, I get to program all the stuff that I like. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that I programmed that I didn't like, but it was about, making sure it was appropriate for the audience. But it was a great time. Especially working with Todd. We were a good team.
What are you most proud of adding?
Oh, I don't know. There was, I don't know. There were so much good music, I thought, that came out in that period that I just personally liked. But I mean, I programmed the 10,000 Maniacs record, the Throwing Muses. It was just fun music. Railway Children.
Val, I'm glad you mentioned 10,000 Maniacs. You should tell the story of singing with them in Tuscaloosa or Birmingham or wherever it was.
Yeah. Well, the best story is that when I was music director, I wasn't old enough to actually get into the clubs that the bands were playing in, and when 10,000 Maniacs was playing the Cotton Club, I couldn't get in, and so the band actually snuck me in backstage. I went in with the roadies and sat up in the sound booth with the guys. So that was kind of funny. But I remember Jane vouching for me because I didn't drink at the time, and the club was in an uproar about we can't let underage people in the club, and so. But yeah, that was fun, and Todd and I got to do yeah, a lot of dates with REM and 10,000 Maniacs. And I can't remember which show it was, but we were on the front row, and Natalie Merchant put the microphone down for me to sing the part sung by Michael Stipe on the album. So that was fun.
How was it going to like CMJ and the music conventions? I know when I first went to a convention, I was floored. We were like a superstar. What was your reaction to that?
Yeah, it was overwhelming. I remember, I think it was fun in New York. I think I felt more overwhelmed in San Francisco at the Gavin Report convention. But yeah, it was just so many people, and the way they treated us, it just really made me realize what a big deal the station was, at the time, how what a big profile we had with everybody. But it was a lot of fun. Just kind of felt like we were all family. It was good.
That's cool. It was a pleasure to work with you. I think for some reason I ended up at your house one time. Didn't I meet your parents?
I don't know.
Oh, well, that's not important to the whole history of the thing, but it was very, very cool to work with you.
Thank you.
Is that it? Any more?
Valerie, I was going to say that I still remember you after all these years too.
You what?
I said I still remember you after all these years too, when I was doing news for Album 88.
Yeah.
Well, nobody can forget Val.
Val, I have to say that you were one of the coolest people there. I used to look up I worshipped you. I honestly worshipped you.
That's funny.
Val, I remember you. You were so innocent back in those days.
And now what?
Yeah, back in those days now.
Taking headlines in all the wrong places.
Is that all? I want to cut you off. Anything else before I don't know who we're moving to, Kim or?
Yeah, I guess Kim's next.
Hi, after Val. Thank you so much, Val, for training me and everything. And I started at the station in '84. And like I said, George Watts trained me. And I remember so many great things about that time. Do you remember that party in the park that we did over in what is Woodruff Park now? I think it is.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
I remember,
and
Kim.
I remember them playing Tom Lewis coming out with that new Frankie Goes to Hollywood record, Relax, and playing it out there and dancing with George and stuff, and thought, this is just the coolest thing in the world. So I worked there for a couple years and I left and got married, and then I came back in '86, early '87, and Todd, bless you, Todd, hired me as his assistant PR director, and which was such a great learning experience because Todd had it just going on. It wasn't just giving away tickets and records. He was doing advertising and he was working all this stuff and everything. It was really a great learning experience. And I kind of had thought that I was going to apply for PR director the next year, and the GM at the time, which both of my GMs aren't here, Mark Bailey and Tate South, which is too, but I guess I scared them away. They're like, God, I'm not coming. He's going to say something about me.
Well, in Mark's defense, it is.
Yeah.
It's like 5 in the morning where he is or whatever. So.
Yeah, I know. And I should have gotten on to Tate and made him come. But yeah, I got kind of lucky. Tate and I had a real affinity musically, and he was like, why don't you give it a shot and try it? And so I was just in love with being music director. I was so into music, and I spent so many days and nights there. I was going to say I ended up doing a lot of 2 to 6s just because I'd be down there listening to records and somebody wouldn't show up, so I'd just go in and fill until somebody came in. We were living down in Grant Park, so being downtown was pretty easy. But Val was still there a lot, and so we hung out a fair bit. Remember, Val, we were at the station that night, and Robin Hitchcock called and said, I'm bored and I'm by myself. Can I just come down and hang out with y'all? And so we went and picked him up and brought him down, and he had records and he went on the air and he was just completely
Yeah,
nuts.
that was fun.
So great. I mean, you just be there. People would go say, hey, can I come hang out? Andreas, he's probably somebody you might want to talk to too, because he was really, involved and around WRAS a lot, and had a lot of friends in the Atlanta and Athens area, and so could probably really speak to being, part of that thing. But yeah, I mean, it was just crazy. I mean, there were always artists in there. I mean, I just can't, I remember Thomas Dolby wandering in, and Chris Stamey, and, I had Ian McCullough on the air one time, and he really didn't want to talk. He was kind of boring, until we started talking about Hairspray and how he got that lift. And then he was like, Aquanet is what you need. And I was like, I'm so down with Aquanet, because it was a big 80s hair thing. And so yeah, we bonded over that, even though the rest of it, he really was yes or no answering me a lot. But Val, I was going to comment. I said, you had so many, I mean, gosh, Tracy Chapman was your record, and you were a real champion for her. And you brought in a lot of stuff that was really kind of different, that whole new country and Americana stuff, like Nancy Griffith and things like that, Katie Lang's early records and stuff. You really had it certainly influenced me. And I mean, the listeners loved that stuff. And, and it's something that I certainly continue to kind of look at and play, because, you've kind of established that so well. And I talked to Andreas, and I told him, I said, I hate that I talked to you so much about radio stuff, because I really should just talk to you about music, because that's much more interesting and fun. But because I was telling him about how, I don't know if you remember, Jeff, Jane was my PD for a little while in the 88, 89 era, before Rich picked it up. And we really, because I think there had been some little scare about people, I guess it was when GPB kind of tried to come back in and weasel the station away from us at one point. And we were really trying hard to reach that 18 to 34 demographic thing. And so I think that a lot of the stuff that we played, we really tried to steer it hard in that direction, and we were really successful. I don't know if you remember those books. I still have them somewhere, because I was quite proud of them, where we actually trended in those areas. Remember, Rich was doing the Birch thing, so we were able to get a lot of really nitty-gritty stuff from him. And it was, I mean, we really did real well. I was pretty proud of, of course, I can't claim it, because it was already trending from when, the Jennifer, Jane, Val era, but I certainly, got a lot of interest from a lot of radio stations, because, about programming, because we had done so well. That was the most fun ever. I mean, I lived there for years, and I had a blast. And I was gonna, Garrettson's gone, but I was gonna tell him, I think I got fired a few times. But I was always, thank you, Mark DeSandre, for hiring me back after a firing. I'd have to wait for a new GM to get to come back. Because I don't know, but I had some great on airs and stuff. And the one that got me fired was Nick Lowe, who came in, who was extraordinary. And we're still friendly, because he kind of came to my defense after I got fired. He brought in a 6-pack, and I was like, you're really not supposed to have that. And he goes, well, I'll take full, and I was torn between throwing him out of the building or letting him be on the air, where I had all these calls and everything, and I let it go. And so, had to leave a little early that year and let Jeff Clark take it over.
Didn't we talk to him about that at that show that he was playing with those guys?
Little Village.
Little Village. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. He was like, even then, he was just, yeah, that was so cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like I said, he gave me a couple recommendations when I did some label gigs and stuff. So, he's very cool. I still see him every now and again at some of the Yep Rock stuff. Mm-hmm. But, and of course, John Wesley Harding, Wes Stace, and I still remain chatty. And, I used to see Robin a fair bit back in the day, but, it was just to get back to the radio station part of this, instead of me chatting about everybody I met there. The real people that were awesome that I met there, and so many of them were on this call. There's John Kirk and, you know, of course, Walker, Laura, Fee, how are you, Fiona? And, you know,
Kim, you were my rock star too. You and Val. Seriously, you guys killed it.
Oh, no, but it was just, you know, I just had the best time. I mean, you know, you just never knew. I mean, you know, I hear it's a little different now. Jeff, do they not let people hang out in the room with you when you're on the air anymore?
Well, yeah, no, it's a long story about some liability stuff that came up and the lawyers' opinions about things. That's why they don't do live interviews anymore.
That's okay. I thought I saw Rankin Rob. Was Rob on here somewhere? Did he disappear? Everybody leaving. See, I clear a room. You should have get me off. Martin Jelly, were you the guy that would write Trower on every record? Somebody told me you were.
Who's the person?
Jim Argendelli.
Oh, Argendelli.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd heard that
Yes.
too.
Did you?
What now?
Somebody told me you were the Trower Bandit. That's what we used to call you.
Trower was fun, but I like Tangerine Dream. That's my band.
I just never could figure it out. I would pull a record and it would say Trower on. I'm like, who is this?
I forgot I did that. Oh my gosh. I completely forgot about that. Yeah.
Somebody told me it was you.
Yeah,
But,
that was that. I thought it was Jeff Walker. I'm going to blame him, but he may blame me.
I would have written Steely Dan on it.
Yeah, you would have written Steely Dan. That's true.
But it was just like, what the hell?
Yeah, I thought I was being clever.
It was just
I
written
certainly
on
wasn't.
everything randomly.
I forgot about that.
Somebody in the 2000s wrote Corn over everything.
But what? Corn?
That was Mal Murray.
Corn? That must have been after my time.
Yeah,
Was that
K-O-R-N.
Mal?
That was Mal's little inside
But
joke.
but no, we just had a blast, and I worked across the hall too. Steve Mann's on here too. I don't know if y'all had any we had this kind of synergy between the TV station and the radio station for a while, and I had this. I was a really terrible VJ, but I had this video show where we would play kind of the similar stuff that we did on RAS and on the TVs in the building, and was notorious for doing a show where I shaved my legs while introducing records. And it was a mess, but it was a good time.
Yeah, I did that too.
Trower and shaving. Man of many talents, Jim.
By the way, y'all mentioned
tapes, too.
Tangerine Dream a little while ago. I remember that there was a time back in around late '86 or '87, we used a portion of Underwater Sunshine as a sounder going into the news. I believe we dropped the one from the ABC Direction Network, for a while. And and speaking of news, is there anybody else on here? I know Joel, you did newscasts a couple of times. Is there anybody on here besides me who did news? Yeah.
I
remember you, Fiona.
People used to imitate me, and I'm Fiona Bloom with the WRAS news staff. Everyone would say news staff. People today still come to me and say, I remember you, Fiona. I'm Fiona Bloom, WRAS news staff.
Oh, wow.
We have international founding. Suddenly we had a global news department.
Yeah.
I know everybody wanted to sound like you, Fiona. No,
it was quite.
I remember.
I
remember my first newscast. It was Kurt Williams was the was the news director at that time, and then I believe Sherry Stroh came right after him. But my first newscast was in October of '83, and just a couple of days before that, that was the Marine barracks in Beirut had been attacked, and then the invasion of Grenada was underway. But I've got a lot of really fond memories, and a lot of the lessons that I learned from Album 88. I mean, skills that I developed on my own and things that I picked up from others. I still use today, and for those for those that I see here. I mean, Jeff and Kim, Fiona, Todd, Joel, anybody else that I might have
Me?
overlooked. Thank you for the joy of working with you. Oh yeah, I think Laura, I believe you and I crossed paths.
I remember when you first
to-
started.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
A green rookie.
You were terrified. And
Well,
we talked
one of the
about it.
things- one of the things that I most remember about my first newscast, I remember Mike Rose was working the board that day, and when I went in, yeah, I was scared because for some reason or other I was wearing a pair of headphones, but I couldn't hear what was going on. I couldn't hear the ABC Direction Network and in the headphones. I had no idea what was going on. I was staring like a deer in headlights through the glass into the control room, waiting for Mike to give me the signal. But anybody else on here that did news at any time? I may be the only one that I can think of who was exclusively news. I never worked as an announcer there.
Yeah, I did news, but I also hosted a jazz show, All That Jazz. I don't know if you guys remember. My very first interview was Chick Corea, who rest in peace, just passed
how
away.
ironic.
He was my very first interview. I was shitting bricks because I was a former classically trained pianist and jazz, I did jazz as well. I was a musician. So was like, he told me, he gave me some confidence. He's like, just chill, just relax. It's just me. I mean, he was just a beautiful, beautiful person. And somehow, Herbie Hancock, Jeff Walker, don't kill me, but I somehow walked out with this record. I don't know how. I didn't
There it
steal
is,
it.
Jeff. You see, we were looking for that record.
Yeah, I didn't steal it. I promise. Future shock. And then Val and Kim Sade, this is my own record, but Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark. No, I didn't steal this one. I bought this one. Oh my God.
That was an accident, right?
Yeah.
Hey.
There you go. See?
Yeah.
Well, Fiona, you might be able to answer this one for me. How did Chick Corea come to be known as Chick? Because I can't find. I haven't been able to find that anywhere. Do you know offhand?
I should.
Anybody?
I think he even told me that. I can't, honestly.
He didn't like me calling dude.
Yes, Chick. I need to dig that back out. I know I knew the answer to that. I just don't remember.
I read a recent story where they actually asked somebody's outlined that, and I don't remember what station. It might have been NPR or something or another, but they talk about how he came to be Chick. So Google it. You can't outsmart.
Hey, and speaking of OMD and Sherry Stroh and Jeff Walker and Tom
Oh my
Berkowitz.
God, where did you get that?
Oh my gosh.
Holy.
Jeff.
Let's see who.
Amazing.
And the amazing Jill Lampe.
Jill Lampe, Will Height. What was his first name? John Will Height? Jack Will Height.
Wow.
And
which by itself is ironic because when I was living in Panama City for a while, the Episcopal church that I attended down there, the rector was named Jack Will Height, and I just thought, holy cow! And the TV station I worked at in Panama City, there was a news anchor there named Tom Lewis, and I remember before I ever saw what this particular Tom Lewis looked like, I thought when I heard that Tom Lewis was going to come to start working at Channel 13, I was like, you're kidding. The Tom Lewis that I knew from Album 88, but alas, it was a different one.
Well, I have to say, since Sherry's picture was up there, Sherry is one of the most interesting women I've ever met in my entire life. She was really a cool lady. And Jill Lampe, I haven't talked to in years, but she was also a cool lady. It's too bad they're not, well, obviously that they're not both here, both either on the phone call or on this planet. I know that Laura wanted to say something. I want to get you in before we ever drop everybody here.
Jill Lampe's still with us, I believe.
Oh, yeah. Jill is, Sherry passed away and Jill's here
Yeah.
and somewhere in Atlanta.
Well, that would be a good segue, Jeff, because Sherry was the public relations director and I took over from her when I was named PR director. So she was terrific, and she left and moved to New York and had a real exciting time living in New York, as I recall. But yeah, just listening to everybody, it's just so great to hear everyone and see everyone logged in. And I had an opportunity to talk to Andreas yesterday, and it brought up a lot of memories. I was able to dig through and find air checks and interviews and all kinds of, written material. So it's really been fun. But I wanted to also say that as we're talking about the station and all the music, I'm glad we're talking about news. And I also want to talk about sports and Dave Cohen, because my show would be preempted when he had a baseball game or a basketball game. And originally it was mostly basketball. And he was just getting going and starting out. And at the time when I started in 1983, GSU had a terrible team and they never won. But I would go in and wait for Dave to finish the game, and then I'd finish the last 45 minutes till my show was 6 to 10 flashback. And I remember going and they were never winning. And one day I went in there and one evening I was waiting around and Dave was getting so excited. And finally they won a game. And I remember him turning and looking at me and said, they won. I was so excited for him because, they may have won.
Another thing I remember about that season too, Laura, is that the basketball team being as pathetic as they were, they pulled off a shocker against Tennessee.
Maybe it was that game. Yeah.
Well, I remember seeing the headline of it on the wall just inside the front door, the headline of the sports section for I guess it was the Atlanta Constitution at the time. I don't know if the papers had merged by then. It said, Georgia State shocks the balls. And another thing about Dave Cohen too, that when he realized that my last name was Osgood, he couldn't help calling me Charles.
That's funny.
To whom I'm not related by the way. But he also referred to me as, quoting here, my brother. I guess there must have been some resemblance to him. But God, I tell you,
and now Dave's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
well,
and it's
his talent.
It's still so much fun to hear him on the radio. It wouldn't be Georgia State without Dave Cohen.
And his talent was apparent then. He was so enthusiastic and such a great, announcer. So it was his enthusiasm was contagious, and it was really fun. And then after my show ended, it was Caribbean Shakedown with Lee Joe Bailey and Boney Man. And that was a whole different kind of thing. And I would occasionally fill in for Lee Joe or Boney Man when they had other obligations. So that was another dimension to the station where there were a lot of people that would call during, my show and say, is Lee Joe there yet? I want to make a request or something. So it was just a fantastic training ground and experience for me. And I'm really grateful and for all the great friends.
Yeah, Boney Man, his name was Marcel, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, Marcel Fahey.
I have contact for him if anybody wants to get in touch. Marcel is around.
Oh, I'd love to email Marcel. Sure.
Okay.
Laura, you are way too modest to admit this, but Flashback was one of the best shows we ever had. It had had energy, and soul, and you got to talk to James Brown.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that, but I met Curtis from the Impressions.
And Curtis Mayfield.
When he was still in great health, not long before his accident.
That's right. He was a guest DJ on Flashback, and he brought his own crate of albums and programmed the show.
And Album 88 also did a nice run of public affairs programs too. I remember the Commonwealth Club of San Francisco, and Album 88 also did its own program called Views and Voices, on which I had two programs. One, including my pride and joy from all the time that I spent at Album 88, a full-length interview with Franklin Garrett, the then historian, of
Wow.
Atlanta. We're talking about the building preservation. I mean, that guy was a one-man, encyclopedia. And
Yeah, he was amazing.
Yeah, and even after all these years, I can still hear his voice and that unmistakable drawl that he had.
Well, I think a lot of people don't know. I
Brown
was
on
one of,
multiple times, Laura.
pardon me? Pardon me?
Didn't you have James Brown on multiple times on your show?
Yeah, well, what happened, the backstory of how I met him was I was in journalism school with Professor George Greif, who was this, I told this story to Andreas, but he was this hard-bitten news guy who had been city desk editor under Ralph McGill when Ralph McGill won the Pulitzer Prize for the Temple bombing story at the Journal-Constitution. And George Greif had been a B-52 gunner sitting in one of those little glass enclosed things with a machine gun that you see on Turner Classic Movies and those films from about World War II. He was no joke. I loved Professor Greif. And he said, when I started studying under him, because I'd been in art school and changed, he said, interview somebody famous. So I had just gotten the job as public relations director, and I went back and looked at the calendar, and the first famous person I saw was James Brown doing a Kings of Rhythm and Blues show at the then new Omni. And it was Wilson Pickett, Bobby Blue Bland, and B.B. King. So anyway, I called his office in Augusta. It was before Rocky IV, before Living in America, but he had recorded it and he knew it was coming out. So he said he wanted to promote the show at the Omni. So he said yes to the interview. Although he thought I was going to do it live or whatever and drive ticket sales at the Omni that day. Went backstage, waited at the door. Here comes the entourage. I'm invited in by his wife at the time. And he's sitting in a bathrobe in pink curlers and says, okay, you can do the interview. And he loved the interview and actually heard it on Album 88, going to the airport that Monday night it aired. And he liked it so much. I found a letter, a thank you note from his office. And he decided, but his history was forward selling his shows at venues across the United States. He'd call every station in town and do a live interview. So he would call me and say, how you feel? And he said, to say, I feel good. And you can call me James, not Mr. Brown. So that was how, and over the years, even when I left Atlanta and moved to New York, his people would stay in touch. And of course, the film Get On Up with Chadwick Boseman, if y'all haven't seen it and you're interested in James Brown, it was phenomenal. It was so true to life of, everything from the strip mall where he had his offices to Chadwick Boseman's performance was so true to life. But I do have those interviews, and I'm hoping I'm going to talk to Joel Ackerman about getting those and then, sending those to the archives. But that was really exciting. And thank you, Jeff. A lot of people don't know, I'm from a very large family. I was born and raised in Atlanta. So I grew up with a lot of older brothers and sisters, a lot of relatives, and everything was about music and dance. It was like growing up at a teenage dance party. So I knew all that music from having grown up with all these siblings playing it all the time. And some like Buddy Holly, and some like Elvis, and some like the Beatles, and some like R&B. So I got the whole spectrum, and some like country. So it was really fun. And it was fun to be able to kind of talk to artists about it and interview artists and talk about their influences. And I knew the material. So I wound up getting a job as the first female DJ at this club called Studebakers, which was a big dance club. And that was a lot of fun too. I had a really good time doing that. And, it was just RAS, the whole training and journalism. And communications and public relations and how the music industry worked. When I moved to New York, I was able to just coalesce all those skill sets and really make things happen. And Joel, I read somewhere that RuPaul did his first radio show on WRAS when you were there. And I was instrumental in Ru getting signed to Tommy Boy. And I was the person that got RuPaul's video, Supermodel of the World, on MTV, because the production people said, we're never going to add a man in a dress and a wig on MTV. And I was so ready for that. And I said, why not? Flip Wilson did it in 1968. Yeah. And they added it the next day. So, there were people that was a really, RuPaul was a visionary at the time and told me about Drag Race when I first started working with Ru. So,
Laura, what year was that? What year was that when you worked with RuPaul?
From 90, I think I have to check the exact dates. It was the early 90s. RuPaul moved to New York.
Yeah, because
and they were shopping all around to get a deal. And I, being from Atlanta, I was working at Tommy Boy, and they were having a real problem trying to decide whether they could sign RuPaul to what was known as a rap and dance label. Mm-hmm. And mostly a rap label, and whether it was going to upset the other artists. And I said, no, let's sign Ru. I'll work with Ru. I can make stuff happen. So that was the backstory with that.
You weren't just working there, you were VP, weren't you?
Yeah, I was head of artist development and media relations. So I did, video promotion. I didn't really do radio promotion, but I art directed and, just helped. I did all of Queen Latifah's media and artist development for the first 5 years of her career. De La Soul, Naughty by Nature, Coolio, House of Pain. And then, I was a person who thought of the hippies of hip hop for De La Soul, and they were really pissed off about it for a little while, but I ran into them and they're still touring off of that 30 years later. I mean, they're super talented guys, but this was all when rap was, people didn't know what it was. And I had this Southern accent, and I had the credentials of saying, yeah, I've met James Brown and I met Curtis Mayfield and interviewed them both, along with a bunch of other people. And it really broke down a lot of doors. But at the time, there weren't that many opportunities to work in the business in the South. New York was the #1 media market in the world. And I felt like I really needed to be in New York to work in the business. So I had a few different offers, but I thought I could do something working with, a startup label. And we did. We broke new gold or platinum album every year for the 8 years I was there. And then I had my own company for 2 years, and I worked with Junior Mafia and Little Kim and Tony. And then I worked with Nancy Grace, whom I met through Atlanta, a trial that she was involved with involving a relative. So I helped her establish her national profile. Then I went to work for another label, and I worked with Ray and Dave Davies of the Kinks, and I worked with Paul Rogers and the Smithereens and a bunch of other people. And then I decided to leave the business at the end of the 90s, and I went to work for Howard Rubenstein and worked in business and finance, and worked with a lot of, global companies like Franklin Templeton Investments and the world's leading authority in oil and reservoir management and upstream technologies, Nansen Solari. He was the head of reservoir management for Saudi Aramco. I worked with Muriel Siebert, the first woman to own a seat on the New York Stock Exchange and had a member firm. And working with her was just phenomenal. And then I would do some music stuff too. I did the national tour for the Rascals, which was fabulous because nobody had the expertise or the music knowledge. So I was like, let me do the Rascals tour that Stephen Van Zandt did. And that was a lot of fun. But the whole thing of working in communications at Georgia State, I didn't have any fear. I knew what I was doing, and I got to travel a lot and work with people, licensees around the world. And it's been a really exciting time. I met my husband, and I decided the music business was a lifestyle business, and I decided I didn't really want to travel anymore because I was traveling a lot. And so, I just pretty much got into working in corporate communications and crisis communications. And so I have a lot of gratitude to Georgia State and to WRAS. It's been a really phenomenal career. And James Brown would even call my office when I was at Tommy Boy, and they would invite me to shows. So I would see him, occasionally, and go back, take people with me. They were like, "Are we really going to?" But George and I went and interviewed Elvis Costello, and I wound up giving Elvis Costello. One of the things I did was get an autograph from James Brown to give to Elvis Costello after that Country Imps, when Elvis Costello was drunk one night and said made racist comments that Bonnie and Bramlett reported on. And I knew some people that knew Elvis, and I gave it to him backstage at it was the Spectacular Spinning Songbook. And he was really moved. He was really, really, really grateful. And James Brown had signed, it was a playbill from the Omni that I'd saved. And he signed it and said, "To Elvis, all, bro James." And I talked to James Brown, and he was surprised that I asked him to sign it for Elvis. And he said, "Well, a man shouldn't be judged by what he says at 4 a.m. at a bar." And he forgave him in that moment. And Elvis was really, really grateful to me to have gotten that kind of, he was really freed from the guilt of it, I think. So that's what his people told me anyway. So I was able to give it to him in person. So anyway, it's been a real fun career, but I can say that when I first moved to New York in '87, it was a terrible, terrible adjustment to leave this world and friends from WRAS and have no access to the station. That was very difficult for me. It was really, really hard to kind of give up that connection, because at the time there was really no way to stay connected. So I just threw myself into the work, and it was busy right away. And but it was a fun time because nobody knew rap music that well. And so I would call all these music critics and turn them on to De La Soul or Latifah or Naughty by Nature or whatever. And I built up my credibility with, and De La Soul won the Village Voice Paz and Jop poll for 1988 or 89, which was for me a real zenith of, doing music publicity. But it got to be much more than just the publicity piece of it. It was like, who are we signing and who are we? But the Curtis Mayfield thing, I hope that one day, we can, I don't know whether we're allowed to, but it was a really, he was a very interesting guy. And Joel, you met him. He was a gentle person, and so grateful, for everything, every fan he ever had, anybody who listened to his music or was influenced by his music. He was a really brilliant producer and songwriter. And I mean, who doesn't love People Get Ready or Gypsy Woman or all those hits he wrote? So it's been a lot of fun. And thank you for letting me share my story.
Hey, do you remember everybody when RuPaul used to show up at our parties? And I would look over, I would have I'd bring in the donuts, and then I would look over and not know the guy. And I'd say, "Who's that guy?" And they said, "Oh, it's just a guy named RuPaul." I said, "Does he work for us?" They were like, no, he just comes over. He likes our parties. I'm like, "Oh, all right, give him a donut."
I remember that, Jeff. I remember RuPaul coming to the parties. I remember that.
He came to the station many, many, many times. And when he came out of drag, you were like, "Wait a second, who's that?"
Laura, you and I had a very parallel lifestyle because I moved to New York as well, a little bit after you. And my first client, my first artist was the Fugees. So I did all the PR for the score for the Fugees, and the Fugees went on the road with Latifah. So I was actually on the road for 6 weeks with the Fugees and Latifah in 1994. And I also represented Gangstar, Hard to Earn. I did all the marketing for Premiere. So I didn't realize you did that. That's I had no idea. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I also did worked with Digital Underground when Tupac Shakur was with Digital Underground, and I got Tupac all of his first interviews and pretty much set him up as an individual within Digital Underground, and that was a really interesting time too. You may recall, Fiona, there was like the East Coast, West Coast thing, and I got a little tired of it, really. I was really, and so I left and, had my own company for a few years, but I was still working with rap artists. It was just, I was looking for something new, and I wanted more of a mix. So that's why I started working with Nancy Grace, and I did some corporate work and some corporate profiling work, and then I got recruited. But anyway, I've already said all that.
Anybody on here interviewed Simple Minds? Because I represent.
No, they
Simple
wouldn't
Minds.
do an interview. They wouldn't do an interview.
Are you sure? Because
yes, because I was PR director when that album came out, and I loved it, and they wouldn't do an interview.
Well, there wasn't anybody else in Atlanta playing it.
Well, this is very interesting. I represent Simple Minds. They're one of my clients. And Jim Kerr to this day says that 88.5 is one of his favorite radio stations.
Yeah, but he wouldn't do the interview.
Bizarre.
Yeah, I remember, because I liked the band, and he wouldn't do it.
Well,
I went to the
Ari,
show at the Fox. They wouldn't do it. I couldn't set it up. It was like 1984 or 85, right?
Didn't Kim Sade do an interview with Simple Minds or Val? None of you guys did, but Patty Houseman?
I don't know, maybe late, but like I think the one that wasn't Sparkle in the Rain, the record, Laura, they were touring for, and they didn't come.
That's right. Sparkle in the
were
Rain.
excited.
They wouldn't do it. We all wanted them to do it.
That's so funny.
Well, in the 1990s, REM wouldn't talk to us either.
Well, they talked to us a lot enough, probably.
I have an interview with Mike Mills on cassette, but he was the only one who would do an interview.
I don't want to let this end without people that didn't talk. Now,
Yeah, definitely.
Mark and I talked last time. Steve, you haven't said anything, have you? Are you still there? London Steve's on the phone. There he is. You want to say something?
I just wanted to say hi. I spent most of my time across the hall from the radio station at the TV station that was, CCTV and GSU TV and then GSTV, through all its iterations and closing downs and reopenings. And Jeff, you probably remember the closing downs better than I do. My favorite memory of one of the closings down was a memo from you that said something to the effect of, commensurate with the closing of the holiday, the TV station will cease operations. It was basically it. It was one of those great memos that I had on my wall for a couple of months.
Well, I'll tell you, I had nothing to do with it. The decisions about the funding and the personnel, all that was made above my pay grade.
Right. Yeah, I kind of figured that was going on. But yeah, so that was a fun time. So we were able to we kept trying to develop synergies with what was happening on the radio and what was happening on the TV side. And Kim, I still have I have digitized on some hard drive in this room all those proving ground VJ moments with you and Kim Curley. So I'll throw them up on the YouTubes and send them to you. I've got an interview with a video of an interview with Erasure at RAS that I think Lisa Mattis also did. That's hidden. I haven't found that one yet. But I threw up the Marty Wilson Piper. Say again?
I saw the one you did with the Blue Nile and Marty Wilson Piper that you posted from the station.
Yeah, those I put up. I can't find the Erasure tape. I know it's here. I've been going through boxes and boxes of tapes and trying to digitize them and get rid of them because no one needs boxes and boxes of VHS tapes. But but yeah, I mean, it was a really cool era, you know, the very late 80s, early 90s, when we were doing a lot of really fun things across the two stations. But, you know, it was kind of a fun experiment. I tried to get Tom Lewis on. I'm still in touch with Tom on a very regular basis. But today he's decided to go AWOL, which is Tom. Yeah, I mean, that's what he always did. I mean, he and I played the band once, and we were shooting a video at 688 Club, and then we're going to do some outside scenes at Piedmont Park, and Tom just never made it. It's not very far from the two, but he didn't get there. Anyway, so it's just great to see everybody and reconnect. And the more, if I keep finding more tapes, I'll put them on the YouTube and link to the group and that kind of thing. But it's cool to see everybody again.
Steve, did you find any ministry interviews?
Not yet, but I will keep looking for it. There was one. There was one, in fact. Yeah. But I will keep looking. A lot of the stuff is on 3/4 inch dubs, you know, that would tacked on at the end of a tape. And I've just got my 3/4 inch deck working again, so I'll actually be able to start going through tapes. I don't know why, but I didn't tend to write on the cassettes what was actually recorded on them at that point in my life. So I'm having to just pop the tape in and spin the wheel and see what I get. So
I'm so glad to hear I'm not the only person that didn't write everything down on their cassette tapes.
Yeah, cases and cases of ostensibly blank tapes that may have gold on them. I don't know. So I'm still looking.
Anybody else want to say anything before we all starve to death?
Has anybody talked, John, Kirk, you need to tell everybody that's here that maybe that didn't hear you the last time what you're doing, because it is so cool.
Oh, thank you.
Kirk.
Yeah, first I want to say hey to a lot of you. I mean, I remember I was there in the days of Rob Maynard, Boney Man, Gail. I made a little list: Tate South, Mike Rose, Todd, George Watts, George DeGolian, Eric Sessions, who I miss. I haven't talked to Eric in a long time. And back when I guess Amy Kana was there, and I still, Joel Nash is the only one that remembers that I played Mannheim Steamroller one time, and I still regret that because Joel gives me shit about that. And so my music tastes have developed and matured quite a bit over the years. And Album 88 was a really big part of my life. I ended up becoming a concert photographer, and music was rooted in the years I was in at Album 88 from 86 to 88. I was in IT for a long time, and now I'm working on a project that 8 months ago I never dreamed I would be on. When COVID hit, I lost all my wedding and my concert business, and I wanted to come down to the US-Mexico border and document what I thought at the time was a non-invasion, and ended up now I'm documenting a whole story on the eco side that's going on with the dynamiting and the destruction of these national forests and these sacred lands of the Tohono O'odham Nation, the Indian reservation, and have gotten a lot of exposure. So now I'm in the process of raising funds to do a full-length documentary with some of the human rights issues that are going on and the destruction of the environment, which a lot of people that even live 20 miles from the border have no idea that's going on. So what I thought was going to be about a 3-week project, now I'm in my 7th month here on the US-Mexico border. And it's kind of a passion project for me right now.
Your photography is amazing.
NPR.
I mean, you're really the only source of that. And so every time I glanced at the TV and I see it on CNN or something, it's like, there he is. And I yell out to the family, it's like, there he is.
I'm kind of shocked. And it was really by accident that I was in Guadalupe Canyon and just west of Douglas, Arizona, or east of Douglas, Arizona. And the destruction that over a 2-month period, when I had previously been there, it was pristine, and it's these wildlife corridors that pumas and mountain lions and bighorn sheep come through. And then all of a sudden there's a 60-foot road cut through the Pelosino Mountains. And I was like, holy shit, this is unbelievable. So I have the drone has been a vital part of my workflow, because these dynamites that I'm catching live, you could not get, with, a 400 millimeter lens. And so I literally was, there 8 and 9 hours a day studying what the dynamite crews were doing. And I could predict pretty much within 5 minutes when they were going to blast. And I never dreamed. So I just started putting things on YouTube saying, does anybody know what's going on? This destruction for the wall that's not stopping people or drugs, but it is stopping wildlife migration. And then now, it's like, it's been all over the world, and I just want to keep getting the word out.
You've done a great job. I think it's real. Now I know that people might be, I don't want to cut that off, except that someone has joined us who hasn't joined us before. We have to give her
Is that the
props.
famous Jane Davis, Jeff?
That's my Yoda
It
man.
may be. Ladies
Is
and
that
gentlemen.
Jane? Oh my God.
Ladies and
Royalty.
gentlemen, live from the Student Center, it's Jane Davis.
She's not a myth.
Wow, Jane Davis in the
See you, Jane.
And if it's too bad we can't see you up close, because you really haven't changed. I don't know what doctor you're seeing, but
I know she looks younger. She looks younger than she was.
And she's drinking champagne. I love that. I just had a couple of glasses myself. So
no,
that's
that's formaldehyde.
Yeah, my son bought this, and he's kind of insistent that we have alcohol in the house, and I'm not objecting, actually. It's COVID. We all need to be as drunk as possible.
Yes. Well, Jane, your ears should be ringing, because Jeff and I did a show on Wednesday where we talked about you, and then I ran some clips from our interview. I called you a brilliant programmer, so that's a matter of public record now. So, c'est la vie.
Well, that's better than calling me a music maven, because I'm not that. Jeff said you asked about whether or not I was influenced by MTV, and I said, don't you remember? I didn't even have a television set, much less cable. And he went, oh yeah, that's right.
Right, Jane. The surprise is that we're not here to talk about
time I caught at other people's houses.
I'm sorry. I was going to say we're not here to talk about RAS. This is a Fox 97 reunion. No.
Oh my God.
Just kidding. I'm kidding. So MTV did not influence you, right?
No, not really. It was more like just looking stuff up, and then occasionally I'd get influenced by going to I was telling you about going to those conventions over at what is the name of that hotel? It was so horrible, but it was an ugly monstrosity Tudor hotel on Howell Road, right at the interstate. Do you remember what the name of it was?
No, but I remember, Jane, you were the first person who told me about Madonna when she was in the Conk video. You had a copy of that video somehow and showed it around the station.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't remember that. Oh,
Jane, talk about going down to Wax and Facts and getting the imports.
Well, I started getting imports for the what I could afford at the time, because nobody was subsidizing me, but I was getting imports at Wax and Facts because Mark Williams told me to go down there and pay attention, and he gave me some things to read. He's like, you need to be reading New Music Express, you need to be reading The Face, you need to be, paying attention to this stuff. And so I started reading, and I'd get some imports, but it was basically at first on my own budget. But then when I became music director, we'd have all these extra records come in, and so I would end up trading them, and they would do an account for me, and I would do it for the radio station and get imports that I thought would be useful for rotation. And then the record reps would get mad at me because they'd want it so I had to re-add the records when they became domestic releases. That was interesting. But yeah, I was sitting here and thinking about stuff the other day about, because I don't know whether you, versus what had come before, the 80s were a big time for women at 88, that a lot of women got finally, some of the good ones are dead, unfortunately. I was thinking about Alicia, and I was also thinking about God, of course, I'm having a brain death right now.
Caroline Murray.
Caroline's still alive as far as I know.
She died a long time ago.
Oh my God.
Caroline Murray died like 10 years ago. Yeah, because we were in touch.
Because, oh my gosh, it's horrible to think that, because she really parlayed her time at 88 into a real career. And then, there was this woman who did news, and she died young. I was thinking about the ones that even died before they hit 40. And Alicia Culver was one, and Sherry Stroh.
Yeah,
Yep.
we mentioned
Right?
we mentioned her earlier.
Okay, yeah. But both of them died from, I guess, cancer. And but they were very influential, and Sherry was she was like the news person for 88 for so long. It was like, okay, here's Dave Cohen on sports, and here's Sherry Stroh on news, kind of thing. And then, and I think maybe the women started before me, because Cleedra was very much of a personality, but then there was that whole like string of music directors. Started with, after her came a couple of guys, Mark and then Gary, I guess, and then was me, and then I want to say it was Jennifer, and then it was Sade, and then it was Valerie, was it? And I think I got the order correct. Anybody can correct me if they want to, but it wasn't. Sorry?
Val was before me.
She was, okay. So I had it wrong, but I was trying to think about it the other day, but it wasn't just that. It was just like there were other women there that were on the air and just were dynamic personalities and doing things, and it just kind of a 180 from what it probably had been in the 70s. And so, I look back and kind of like, whoa, I met some really interesting people back then. That was pretty good.
Yeah, on the whole, I think women did a better job as music director.
I'm sorry?
I said, on the whole, I believe women did a better job as music directors.
Well, for what you were trying to do, yeah, where you wanted them to program two women, I think their ear was probably better for that. But so I think it made a huge difference in that respect. And it was just, they were interesting, and they did things. And then I came back after being away for 2 years in New York, and there were just some really amazing women in that radio station. And does anyone been spoken to Kim Turner recently, or know anything about her?
I was very, yeah.
Sorry?
I've been in touch with Kim Turner. Yeah.
I've talked to Kim over the past year or two. Yeah.
I used to run into her occasionally at it's funny, at Christmas, and we would always end up sorry, my family's in the background. They kind of run into her occasionally. But I just also think about her and how dynamic she was, and how she came to Georgia State just because she wanted to be on the radio. And she's like, I still listen to you on Charmaine, kind of stuff, But she had a definite idea. And I was thinking about Abby and all those, how I would be like, oh my God, she's not following rotation, but she's still, as far as a personality and it coming across in the air and on Saturdays and stuff like that, pretty amazing person. I don't even know if she's still alive. She was having a lot of health issues.
Yeah, she is. She's had some difficulties, but she was on the last call back in January.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and I spoke to both Abby and Mike yesterday. And, you know,
Okay.
Abby had a traumatic brain injury 13 years ago, she said.
Right, that's what I was saying.
Yeah, it was interesting because she recalled that show, because I remember speaking to Jane, and Jane was like, "Oh, dear Abby, huh? Keep an eye on that one." Just because of the music that, you know, wasn't like format, but she had a big following and she had a relationship with it.
She would go through the rotation and pick out everybody's favorite songs on every album and play that only.
I can imagine.
But it was a great time shift because she was on from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Saturdays, and that's when everybody's waking up on Saturday.
Yeah, and I got both her and Mike on the phone, Mike Blackburn, her husband, because they're a WRAS couple. You know, they married and been together for whatever, 30, 35 years. So I got them both on the phone. So it's just a kind of a magical moment there. But from what Jane is saying, I mean, that's something I kind of found out by doing these oral histories, you know, in the 70s, talking to Connie Pritchard, right? Katie Wood, you know, as many more men than women in the 70s. But by the 80s, that had turned, and Jeff and I have spoken about this, and Jane kind of really clarified it for me. I did a whole show called Gender and Radio about WRAS a couple of weeks ago, where I played some clips from Jane and Jill Mellinson. Todd was even in there as well for a bit. But yeah, you're absolutely right, and that makes so much sense. You know, when you look at the playlist, you're like, well, you know, they're not going to play hardcore or punk or heavy industrial, my kind of music, but something, you know, and I don't like use the word softer edge because it just seems kind of lame. But like Jane said, it was scathing lyrics, you know, good music, something you could dance to, you know, and I've heard that many times. Also, Laura had some great comments about that, Fiona as well. So, you know, I call them and Kim, the ladies of the 80s, which is.
Actually, I have a couple of names I'd like to throw out. One is Emily Dyer. She was a childhood friend that I knew, worked at the station from like 78 to 80, according to this booklet I have. And also Patricia Kilpatrick, whom I invited. I thought she was going to dial in. I think she was there right around 1980 and into 83, 84. But also, does anyone know what happened to Melissa Lamar? She was like incredible. And earlier, Mary Vaden Hall was on the phone. Huh?
I know about both of them, unless somebody knows them. I know them fairly well. Does anybody know them better than me? I'll just say that you know, Mary Vaden. Let's see. She was a DJ in I think in Tennessee, then Virginia, Hawaii, and there's an interesting story about her husband, how he pursued her all the way to Hawaii and told her that he wouldn't leave Hawaii until she agreed to marry him, which she did. And then that's a whole other story. That's an interesting story. One of the neat things about Mary is that she created this, what was the name of the company?
It's the chocolate and peanuts company. The peanuts, the high end. Yeah.
Yeah. She made the best peanuts in this country and sold them at Bergdorf and Goodman and all the fancy places, Neiman's and all this stuff. She just closed it down because of the COVID thing, but I was heartbroken because our family got addicted to her peanut line. But anyway, so yeah, she was on the call, but she's not here right now. And then who's the other person you said?
Melissa Lamar and Patricia Kilpatrick.
All right, Melissa, what?
Melissa Lamar.
Yeah, Melissa. Okay, so Melissa, she moved to New York, and I can't remember exactly what she did when she moved there, but for the past maybe at least 10, 15 years, and I can't explain it because it's scientific. She has been working in an office where they've been doing AIDS research and AIDS counseling.
Oh, that's fabulous.
And so she's still up there. She's on, I think 13th Street. And I've never asked her because I thought it was rude. I guess I'll say this publicly, but she must be in a rent control place because she's been in the same unit for the past over 20 years. Would that be true, Laura, that she'd be in a rent control?
Well, that happens in New York. If you get a great space, you stay there. because they're hard to find.
Even not necessarily rent control, you can get rent stabilized where they can't. It's not as good as rent control, but they can't raise your rent over a certain point every year. And yeah, you're exactly right. You get a good space and you stay there.
So they're alive and doing well. Jane, could you quickly tell the story about how you used to work at Super Dupe and the famous actor came in and you didn't know who they were?
Oh God. Jason Robot. I don't know if it was Super Dupe or the video thing, but somebody, oh, and the lady that played 99 on Get Smart. But Jason Robards came in and I didn't recognize him. And because I wasn't the movie fan that Mr. Walker. And I got on the loudspeaker and said something, called somebody to the front desk because Mr. Robards was there. And everybody laughed at me like, don't you know who he is? And I'm like, no. So that was, I learned later who Jason Robards. That I'd actually liked this movie, but I went for a long period of time without television and movies. So I really didn't. I think I didn't watch television on a regular basis until I was actually in New York and got a set up there.
I'm just glad you survived that apartment that had the natural gas fumes leaking into your bathroom.
Yeah, that was weird. And the earthquake that I thought it was the boiler blowing up. They had an earthquake on Long Island, and I had this huge old oak bed, and it was shaking. And the guy next door, you could hear, he was like the building super, and he ran downstairs to turn off the boiler. He thought the same thing I did, and then we all found out it was an earthquake on Long Island. But so Laura, you're still in New York, right?
Yeah, I am.
How
I
do you
love
like
it
that?
here.
Yeah, I miss it. I do visit whenever I can, need to hemorrhage money. And in fact, I was kind of upset. The last time I was in New York was like a year and a half ago. I was over in the Wilmington area, and I made a day trip over to New York and went up and did the what is that elevated garden space they've got now?
The High Line.
Yes, the High Line. Oh, what a wonderful area. And then I got to see the sculpture. I didn't walk up it, that they just closed down because too many people are committing suicide. And, and I walked into the
Oh no, that's the vessel. The vessel.
Yes,
And
yes, I saw it.
also known as the shawarma, the hero meat that they carve it. But anyway, no, they had to close it down. 3 suicides. It was terrible. I feel really, really bad about that. I mean, the pandemic has really impacted the city, but people say, oh no, New York City is going to come back, and it's going to come back bigger and better than ever. There's just going to be an explosion of creativity. There already is. I mean, you just see art stuff, and Governor Cuomo is launching something called it's a pop-up arts. I forget the name of it, but I can send the link around. It's a New York Arts Festival. So it's performers all over. It launched yesterday with Hugh Jackman and John Baptiste. It's launching on the 20th. All these kind of just popping up wherever, like whether it's the Javits Center where they're doing vaccines, or whether it's, Union Square, they're just going to show up, I guess, like the Rolling Stones on the flatbed truck going through the city. I have no idea, but they're pouring money into bringing the arts back. So I'm hoping that with the vaccine rolling out, we're all going to be able to gather once again. And I think maybe, we could all plan to meet up in person in a year or two or whatever, and have another gathering like you so kindly put together Jeff, because it was great seeing everybody in person. And Jane, it's great seeing you and everyone else. And if anybody comes to New York, y'all got to look me up.
And me, I'm here too. And by the way, I just moved into a 2-bedroom. I could never afford a 2-bedroom. With COVID, I'm paying $1,800 a month, which is unheard of. My place is usually my place is $2,900 a month. I got it for $1,800.
Because
So
people are moving out of the city?
Because everybody's fleeing the city. And like you said, more arts is going to come back in. And I've been here this entire time and it's been terrific. It really has. Yeah.
Hey, Jane, since we may not get you again for another 30 years, can you say something about the impact of going to CMJ and Gavin, the conventions, and you're having the RAS badge on and people coming up and having the reaction from, recognizing you from RAS? Well,
We were kind of like the rock stars of college radio. I mean, anybody that went to those conventions and they said they were WRAS, you would get a reaction, because if we put music on the air on rotation, it had an impact in the city of Atlanta area. And so that was just a fact of life there, that what we were doing definitely helped open some careers, at least in the Atlanta area, for certain artists. They got recognized, the records sold, things happened.
And I believe that you started, I believe you started tracking, right? The sales tracking at the.
Well, yeah, because me and my oversized clothing back then. Oh my God, that's a great shot though. And
that was on somebody's apartment rooftop in Queens or Brooklyn or somewhere where we crashed during an IBS convention.
That's a classic shot there. You keep everything, don't you, Todd?
Losing power.
You are.
There it goes. The let's see, what was the other thing? All right, yeah. So the tracking, and I distinctly remember that we played Eddie Grant's Electric Avenue for about 3 weeks before it started to hit, and then somewhere between the 4th and the 6th week, it was selling over 1,000 units just off of our airplay. And is there anybody else that got more sales than that, if you remember?
I don't know I can't remember the numbers on sales. I did, the thing was they wanted you to order your playlist in the order of, oh, this is the number 1 or whatever. So being the obsessive compulsive, whatever rule oriented person I am, I get it on sales. So I would call around a bit. And I'm sure, like, Danny Beard's probably pulling the numbers out of his butt when he was telling them to be on the phone. Oh yeah, but you could tell when something really started taking off, like with 10,000 Maniacs, you'd say, oh yeah, I'm selling a couple. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, this past week I sold 10 units, or I sold 20 units. And for him to start moving 10, 20, 30 units a week out of the store there in 5 Points, and the other thing is that if, and he did, I was funny. I didn't want to play stuff that people couldn't buy. So if Danny would stop, I talked to him and said, I want to add this. And Maniacs is one of them. I want to add this. Please make sure you have copies. And he said, yes. And that happened a few times, but I was really believed that if somebody shouldn't hear something they couldn't get except by taping it or something on the radio, I thought they should be able to go out and get their, because that was also good for the artist, because then the artist got, the revenue was also from selling something. So, but I'm looking at you, Lauren. I'm thinking about all those different artists you talk to and how you always seem to find some commonality you talk to. You could talk to anybody, and I would pay money to be able to do that. I have trouble talking to my friend, well, acquaintances, whatever. But it's like I just remember you just could talk to anybody that came through the door about anything.
Thank you, Jane. That's really kind of you. But you were hugely, you were such a tastemaker, and you had an ear, and you were able to recognize, and you were nice enough to say, hey, you were clear about what you were going to add, but occasionally you'd ask around, what do you think? What do y'all think about this? But there was, especially the UK acts that were coming up, like Lloyd Cole or the Stranglers or New Order or Big Country, or there was a whole Echo and the Bunnymen,
The Smiths, the Smiths.
yeah, of course, the
Smiths, yeah.
Smiths. We talked,
Those are ones
yeah.
I also knew from Charmania. A lot of them were, some of them came in later. And Lloyd Cole, oh my gosh. No. Val and I would be like, oh, Lloyd
But
Cole.
like Billy Bragg.
Oh my God, huge, wonderful guy. And
but
and
that
he did
was
us a huge favor being at going and putting on that show down at the King Center. That was.
But but the thing about, but then American acts like the Blasters and all of, those kind of the Stray Cats, all of that stuff. But I was doing the PR stuff and doing the concert calendar. So we would sell tickets to shows too. That was a big deal. I mean,
Yes,
people
it was.
wanted to know what was coming up, and we were selling tickets. And I began to get a sense of it because, promoters would call me, and, we'd do giveaways, and those giveaways would drive people to the door to buy tickets. So that was a really important aspect of it, because at the time I was working my way through Georgia State in the bar and restaurant business. So I knew a lot of people in food and beverage and at the different venues, and, Alex Cooley's Ballroom at 688 and people in Buckhead. And there were a lot of clubs that, their night was made for bartenders and waitresses on whether or not we could promote a show and sell some tickets. So there was that whole, big time. It was like bartenders and waitresses, whether or not they were going to be able to make rent that month. And, people would thank me. People would come up to me and thank me and say, thank God, thank you for, listing our show, or, we would do them all. They were in creative loafing, and we would just do them all. But it was a big deal for people. It had impact in people's pocketbooks, in neighborhoods around the city, in little 5 Points. And it was important. And I still think that college radio is very important. And, I think it helped the economy in Atlanta a lot. And I don't know whether the leaders at Georgia State really understood that, but I kind of had a holistic view of it, because I was working too. I was working in restaurants, and I was seeing the impact.
I don't know if you
started it that way.
I don't know if anybody agrees, but I don't know if back in the 80s, at least, I don't know of any other college radio station that sold more albums or got more people in the doors of clubs than we did.
I can't imagine, because, you hear this kind of, Andreas brought up Atlanta versus Athens. There was never any, in my view, there was never any comparison, simply because Atlanta was a larger market.
Yes.
And people were going to come from the UK or Europe or the West Coast and play Atlanta before they were ever going to go to the 40 Watt Club in Athens. So, Atlanta had the venues, and it had the Fox, it had the Municipal Auditorium, had the Civic Center, it had, all the clubs. So there was never really, anything. People would leave Athens to come to Atlanta, and occasionally people would go from Atlanta to see a show in Athens. But I think there was much more of a migration from Athens to Atlanta in terms of.
But the point they were making, Laura, is that, the airport, the touring, the clubs, and the recording studios, right? DB
Mhm.
Records and all that. Danny Beard.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they were saying musically Atlanta had shit. That everything was in Athens. I mean, they were very adamant about that. That musically, Atlanta had nothing compared to Athens in creativity, and and UGA and the art school and all that. That's what they were harping on.
I don't know if I agree with that. Well,
I wasn't here. I'm just telling you.
but I'm still
Well,
remembering like the Brains, and I'm thinking about some
The who?
other bands that just
The
came out that were
Brains.
just pretty mean.
The Brains, yeah, they mentioned the Brains, but I mean, you can't compare the Brains to Pylon, B-52s, REM, Love Tractor, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
These groups that, you know, let's face it, are iconic for that music. I mean, the Brains, Method, you know, Swimming Pool Cues, yeah, we listened to them, we played them.
Oh, the
They're-
Georgia Satellites were huge. They were global, you know,
yeah, but that
they're
was more
still,
kind of, yeah, that was more rocky too.
Yeah, but we played them and helped launch them, so you know.
Not well, and
yeah.
Rick,
And RuPaul was not from Athens. RuPaul lived
That's
in
right.
Atlanta.
Oh my God.
So,
Yes.
you know, we can't,
Yeah.
you know, we talk about like that, and Athens does own that, but there was so much diversity in Gladys Knight and the Pips went to Northside High School, Northside Performing Arts High School. And, you know, she was as an important and influential voice even today. So there were a lot of people that came out of like urban music. And that's why the scene in Atlanta is what it is today.
well, yeah, let's face it. I mean, the Atlanta scene now is much bigger, much more productive, much richer than anything happening in Athens in the
But-
last.
It is
but-
the urban.
But,
it's the urban
you know,
scene. We're
Brendan
just-
O'Brien was a huge producer, huge. I mean, he's like incredible. Was such a tastemaker. And, you know, he lived in Atlanta for many, many, many years. And people flew to Atlanta. I mean, he did Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah.
People flew to work with him. So, you
But
know,
there
weren't any big producer.
there is a rivalry. I mean, and I didn't
Yeah.
know. It's like I'm from New Orleans, and the Falcons, the New Orleans Saints, the Atlanta Falcons have a rivalry. Why? It's ridiculous to me, especially since after Katrina, Atlanta accepted so many New Orleans people. They still hate the freaking Falcons. You know, so Athens and Atlanta apparently have this same type of rivalry. And that's what the lady told me. She wrote the book. So, you know, I have to take her.
Yeah, the reputation, the rap was in the 80s, the Atlanta music scene. Not, I mean, Atlanta media really, I mean, Atlanta radio is always viewed as a sucky radio market. The music it was
I wouldn't say Atlanta's a sucky radio market. I think it's a breeding ground, you know, for the big markets. I mean, and look at RAS, look at the placement of RAS in the Atlanta market. You told me this other, you know, that 100,000 watts for a college station in a metropolitan area. That's crazy stuff. I mean, that you wouldn't find that in New York, Chicago, LA. It's
But if you did find it, you found like, what is it? The New York one that they have to flip the format. They share the signal with somebody. Or you'll know who that is.
There was one in New Jersey, FMU.
Yeah.
No, it's in New York, I think.
WBLS and LIR, they share the same.
Yes.
WBLS, yes. By the way, can I just say 3 amazing Atlanta rock bands? Driving and Crying, the Black Crowes, and Follow for Now. Those 3 rock bands in Atlanta were just in the late 80s, early 90s. Yeah.
Yes.
And
Right.
oh, never mind.
But once again, the B-52s and REM, it's over. I mean, there really isn't much discussion beyond those 2 groups for Athens. You can say Pylon and you know, but really those 2.
5'8".
Marry my hope.
5'8",
Well,
yeah.
5'8".
But when
Very
you're
my
talking
heart.
about cultural influence, I think Andreas has a point. I mean, REM and the B-52s changed music. They created a new trend and or new trends. But the whole
I don't know, the Black Crowes for American music, Americana, and that Southern rock.
I mean, you know, look,
They
the
were
Black Crowes play
tradition-based.
blues rock. Look, we're not. I don't want to get enmeshed in an Athens
settle down,
Bristol
everybody.
argument.
But do
Because
you
I'm from
remember
New
when the
Orleans,
Black
people.
Crows
We got
were
enough
with
music
the
in New
Black
Orleans,
Crows?
so you can't. Neither scene can
Mr.
compare to New
Crows.
Orleans. All right.
I used
Mr.
to,
Crow's Garden.
There you go. And they didn't sound
Mr.
like the
Crow,
Black
yeah.
Mr. Crow's
Crows. They
Garden, they
sounded
suck.
alt rock.
Yeah,
They
they suck.
sounded like something that we would play normally on our.
I used to drink beer. I used to drink beer with Chris Robinson at the Cotton Club. He dated a girl's best friend that I was dating, so we used to hang out. He was an asshole back then, though.
I think he always was. I still have a little plastic Cotton Club card from when they would, oh, you're a VIP here. We're going to give you this little plastic card that says Cotton Club on it. So I'm sure other people have weird. Laura, you and Sade must have a collection of memorabilia. I'm really bad about getting rid of stuff, but I can't imagine you guys. And oh, wait a minute, Todd Elmore. Todd keeps everything. Everything. I would love to
Jesus,
see,
I'm about to
his
purge it.
memorabilia.
Well, like I said, y'all need to send this stuff to the archives. Don't purge, don't toss, don't clean, don't nothing. Send it to me and I will get it to the archives and you'll get a receipt, right? That it's been official. So, please don't get rid of anything. Just, it needs to go in the archives. That's a big thing for me to do. So.
Yeah, that's great.
What is the name? And I'm sorry, Jane knows this. I've got a mind like a steel sieve, and it goes right through. What is the woman who's probably now in her 30s, and she was on she does like soul music, and she's on every single award show, and she has James Brown moves. The hell is her name?
Oh, Janelle Monáe. Janelle Monáe.
Janelle.
Yeah.
Didn't she spend a lot of time down at RAS doing interviews and stuff?
I wouldn't know.
Probably. I mean, she was more in the late 90s, 2000s when she was breaking out of Atlanta.
But but an amazing talent. And it reminded me of stuff from the 80s. It's just like she channeled and the same thing with Outkast. The things that they did in their videos and stuff. It's just like it's like, oh my God, that's like the fruition of what we were doing back in the 80s.
And Arrested Development too.
All right, we're hitting the 3-hour mark here. Is everybody fatigued?
Well, this has been so fun, everyone. It's great seeing y'all.
Don't be so nervous about cooking dinner.
Jane, I want you to come in, Jane. Jane, please come in.
I'll come in, and if Walker will co-host with me, or
no,
somebody else.
Walker already did it.
No. You don't understand. I am basically a hermit these days.
Okay. All right. So if we wrap you in a plastic bubble.
I'm not worried about that. My spouse just got the vaccine, and I'm not so worried about the COVID.
Well,
stuff.
I am going to start offering folks to come in and do shifts with me with plenty of advance warning. Kim and I have emailed about it. Jane and I have emailed about it. So, if anybody's interested, to come in and do something, involving the history of the station, as well as playing music of the era. Everything's there, more or less. Jeff and I have gone through the vinyl stacks, and it'd be great to get your voices on, and it's serving my purpose is getting the history of the station out. So this can all be done. Jeff and I did a show on Wednesday. It was all perfectly COVID safe. He was in a production room. I was in the control room. We were wearing masks and gloves, and it was just the two of us at the station. So that opportunity is out there, and I think especially in the anniversary year, that could be cool for people to come in and do that with, like I said, the proper protocols involving that with enough advance warning, because there's bureaucratic procedures to get guests to come into the studio. So
Do you do it virtually too, or just in the studio? Could you?
I haven't. I'd be interested in entertaining how to do that, but that's a technical thing I'm not really familiar with. So I'm sure
we'd have to find out. I don't know whether Georgia State allows Zooming, but they do have Microsoft Teams, so they may be able to put Teams on the studio computer and see if that works. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll offer out that some of my artists have been doing. There's a platform called Clean Feed. I don't know if it's cleanfeed.com or cleanfeed.net.
Yeah.
But it's like you're in the room through that platform.
Yeah, I think NPR or maybe other people are using that. That's supposed to be great. Yeah. All right.
That
well,
sounds fun, Andreas.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, let's see. But right now I'm trying to do in person with enough advance warning. But technically the other thing could be done. And we have a new engineer, Robert, who replaced Tom. Yeah, Tom been there a long time, and of course the famous Harvey Morris, legendary Harvey Morris, right? So yeah, the new guy. I mean, yeah, he comes from commercial radio, right, Jeff? He's got a long story.
long history with CBS Atlanta V103, and we can't forget that the longest serving person in the engineering orbit, at least, is Jane's husband. He started working with Harvey, hired him for special purposes way back in the late 70s, 80s. I can't remember, Jane.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's funny that you've got the guy that's the engineer, because I've met him because the WAOK arrays over here in my neighborhood, they're AM antennas. And so I met him back when there were some problems over in that area. And Jim and I went over there one day and talked to him. So I met him a long time ago. You can tell him I said hi, whoever sees him. And that Jim Gantner's wife is probably how he remembered me. But yeah, it's funny, we have AOK's array over here in the neighborhood.
Yeah, Jane is too modest to admit it, but her husband Jim is Jim Gantner, is the most respected radio engineer, certainly in Atlanta.
I'm not too modest to brag on my husband. He's fabulously good.
Yeah,
I can vouch for that. I still work with Jim, so.
Yeah, Jim is one of the.
Let him retire. He's tried to retire a couple of times. And they won't let him retire.
Well, I saw that Jim Morrison had zoomed in for like a minute.
Yeah, he zoomed.
Wait,
he zoomed in and zoomed out.
Jim Morrison was my boss. I was his assistant music director at WR Star 94.
Yeah, yeah. So he was on for like literally 2 minutes, and then he split. I don't know, because I talked to him a couple of days ago and said, hey, you should do this thing. I sent him the invite. But yeah, I don't know.
But he's more 70s.
Yeah, well, he's definitely 70s. But and I was also mentioning Roger Wilson, who was on for a bit. He had the guitars in the background. He was a rip and read news guy, and went on to a pretty successful career as a blues guitarist. So he was on very early, and then cut off after about 15-20 minutes. I guess you youngins in the 80s, he split, as they would say in the vernacular. Right. All right. Well, look, guys, I'm gonna go because it's eating time. Filet, oyster, champagne, it's all the good stuff. So it's been great, everybody talking, and have a good night. Ciao.
Thank you,
Good night.
Andreas. Thank you so much.
Send me shout outs, everybody. Send me shout outs through the Jeff Walker at gsu.edu or my phone number or something like that. I need some stuff. Actually, I'm sorry. Don't send them to me. Send them to him. He's on. Let's see. Where the hell? Can we go back?
Jane, you have to do the interview with Andreas.
I've done an interview with him. And,
oh, okay.
Go co-host. You too, Kim. Y'all, everybody has to do it.
Oh no, I'm excited. I can't wait to get down there and do it.
Oh yeah, I told him that he should have you on do a show with you, because I said, like, Sade remembers all the musicians. She'll track on.
Yeah, let's go down there in May.
I'll do it. That would be awesome, John. That's what we'll do.
It. Yeah.
All right.
We'll
I can't find Andreas's email address. Have you got it? Oh, there it is. Okay. If anybody wants to write this down, APREUSS1 at student.gsu.edu. I'll say that again. APREUSS1 student.gsu.edu.
I can't imagine that there's a 2. I mean, seriously. I mean, that's like Simshauser,
That's a good observation.
Kim, you've got the strangest delay because it puts you into stop motion
like it's a gum,
crap on my stuff.
like
my
a gum,
phone,
it's
so I
like
wanted
a
to chime in on so
Gumby
many
and
of those Pop
Pokey.
Shakur moment. Pop Shakur.
It looks like dinner's ready at my house. My son's been cooking in the background, so.
Oh, thank
I'm
gone.
Great to see you, Jane. Great to see
All
you,
right.
Tim.
No, but
Great to
yes.
see you all, everyone.
Great to see everybody.
Yeah, bye, everybody.
Jeff,
True.
George.
George, you look wonderful.
Is it, so wait a minute.
And I spent a lot of time with another Todd.
Todd, is there another one? Do we have another thing for the 2000s that we're thinking about, or I'm sorry, the 90s rather than the 90s?
You tell me, man. I'm just the host. I'm the web host. You're the host. I'm the web host.
We'll I guess we'll talk about it. We don't know. We'll probably do something. Yeah.
I'm down.
We could have a whole show. I imagine how many good conversations we could have just about the concerts that we saw. We could talk for 2 hours.
God, are you kidding? Oh my, I think that was my entire life for like 5 straight years, was just endless shows.
Maybe
Oh,
we'll
I
do a monthly.
I have to say something real quick.
We can do a
Does
monthly
anybody-
thing where. Go ahead, Jane. Jane.
Oh, I was just going to say that before I get off the phone, it's Valentine's weekend, and all I can think of is all those amazing Valentine's specials that Rich Jones used to do. Did anybody bring those up?
No, Rich and I used to do the Unhappy Valentine's Day special for like 3 years straight. Yes, where we would get people to call in and dedicate music to people they couldn't stand anymore or broke up with. It was fabulous.
Those were
Those were
wonderful.
the best. I got to see if I've got any of those anywhere. But yes, it was great, and the music was fab because one of the great things about the '80s, there were so many nasty, hateful love songs.
Yeah.
But yeah, those were so. I've been trying. I've been constantly emailing Rich, Becky, and Chris. I'm like, where the hell are y'all? I don't know how they didn't come in on this.
Yeah.
So,
Oh yeah.
We need to do another one of these where we just shoot the bull and laugh, so that it doesn't have to be less history and more just,
No, yeah, no official.
Shooting
Just,
the bull.
hey, how you doing? Yeah.
Or over a cocktail with a cocktail.
Absolutely. I had
A cocktail
knocked it
show.
over. There you go.
Yeah.
But you're not a cat.
Your Honor, I'm ready. I'm ready to proceed.
Do you have the cat on again? I gotta get. Oh my gosh.
Your Honor, I'm
So
ready to
funny.
proceed. I'm on my secretary's computer, and I'm on my secretary's computer. I can't get
Talk
off
about a
this filter.
Brilliant moment.
That's Kim said. Nice. But you, Miss Walker.
Hey, stranger.
Guys, I'm gone. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Nice to see you.
Bye.
Good night.
Good to see you.
Bye.
Thank you, Todd.
Bye.
Guys.
Bye.
Thank you, Todd.
Thanks, Todd. Really.